The wedding planner's voice was ice cold through the phone. "Miss Jaime, I'm calling to inform you that your family's invitations to your brother Marcus's wedding have been canceled." I gripped my coffee mug tighter. "But we're keeping the $65,000 deposit you paid for the wedding expenses." My laugh was bitter. "Cancel the entire wedding." She gasped. "But ma'am, you're not the bride." "No," I said quietly, "but I own the venue, the catering company, and the hotel chain they booked for guests." The stunned silence on the other end of the phone gave me a moment to collect myself. I was standing in my corner office, 42 floors above downtown, watching the morning sun paint golden streaks across the city skyline. The wedding planner, Eleanor Hastings, finally found her voice. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" I set down my coffee and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Evergreen Estates, where the ceremony is booked, that's mine. Golden Spoon. Catering handling the reception, I built that company from scratch. The Mayfair Hotel Collection, where 200 guests have reservations, I closed that acquisition 3 months ago." The sound of papers shuffling frantically came through the phone. I could picture Eleanor reviewing the contracts, seeing the parent company, names she'd overlooked. My holdings were under Meridian Hospitality Group, a name that meant nothing to my family, but everything in the industry. "Miss Thompson, I had no idea. The bride and groom never mentioned—" "Of course they didn't," I said. "They don't know. How could they?" For 16 years, I'd carefully built my empire while maintaining the fiction that I was just a simple event coordinator. It started when I was 16, washing dishes at a local restaurant after school. The owner, Mrs. Chen, saw something in me beyond the suds and grease. She taught me everything about the food service business from procurement to presentation. While my brother Marcus was celebrated for making the junior varsity football team, I was learning to calculate food costs and negotiate with suppliers. When he got into State University on our parents' dime, I was working 3 jobs to pay for culinary school. The Christmas he received a new car, I was signing the lease on my first food truck. But in the Thompson family story, Marcus was the golden child destined for greatness, and I was Jaime, the daughter who needed to find a nice husband and settle down. Every family gathering followed the same script. "Poor Jaime," Aunt Margaret would whisper, 32 and still single. "At least she has her little job." That little job had grown into something none of them could imagine. The food truck became a catering company. The catering company's success let me buy my first venue, a rundown estate. I transformed into the city's most sought-after wedding location. Each success funded the next acquisition, and I reinvested everything living modestly in a simple apartment they'd never seen, while my real assets grew. "Should I inform the bride about this situation?" Eleanor asked hesitantly. "Not yet," I replied. "First, I want to understand why my family decided to exclude me from my brother's wedding while expecting to keep the deposit I paid." The irony wasn't lost on me. Charlotte Pemberton Marcus's fiancée had specifically chosen my venues for their exclusive reputation and unparalleled service. She'd spent hours touring Evergreen Estates, gushing over the restored Victorian architecture and manicured gardens. She'd sampled dozens of menu options from Golden Spoon, finally selecting the most expensive package. She'd insisted on booking the entire east wing of the Mayfair for her out-of-town guests, all while having no idea she was benefiting from the empire built by the future sister-in-law she found so distasteful. I pulled up the wedding file on my computer. Every detail had been meticulously planned, and I'd personally ensured they received upgrades and perks no other client would get. The presidential suite, usually $5,000 a night, blocked off for them as a gift. The executive chef creating a custom menu based on their favorite flavors. The vintage Rolls-Royce from my personal collection arranged for their departure. "Miss Thompson." Eleanor ventured, "The wedding is in 6 weeks. If you're serious about canceling—" "I'm very serious," I said, scrolling through the contracts, "but I'm not going to be hasty. Send me all correspondence you've had with the bridegroom and their families. I want to understand exactly what's happening here." That might be uncomfortable, Some of the emails. Eleanor, I've built my success on facing uncomfortable truths. Send everything. As I ended the call, I thought about the last family dinner at my parents' house. Charlotte had been there, her designer handbag prominently displayed her perfectly manicured nails, gesturing as she talked about the wedding plans. She'd looked at me with barely concealed disdain when I mentioned being excited about the celebration. "Well, Jaime," she'd said with a tight smile, "we're trying to keep things intimate. You understand, don't you? Just the most important people." Marcus had shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Our parents had suddenly become fascinated with their plates, and I'd smiled and nodded, playing the role they expected, even as I mentally calculated that their intimate gathering for the most important people would cost nearly $500,000 at my venues. My assistant Robert knocked and entered. "Your 9:30 is here, but you look like you've received bad news." "Just some family drama," I said, turning from the window. "Push the meeting to 10. I need to make some calls." As Robert left, I picked up my phone again. If my family wanted to play games with invitations and deposits, they were about to learn that the sister they'd dismissed and overlooked had become someone they couldn't afford to ignore. The wedding they'd planned, using my life's work while excluding me from attending, was about to become a lesson in consequences none of them would forget. 6 months earlier, Marcus had shown up at my apartment unannounced on a rainy Thursday evening. I just returned from a 16-hour day finalizing the Mayfair acquisition, and the last thing I expected was my brother at my door soaking wet and carrying a bottle of wine. "Jaime, I need to talk to you," he'd said, and something in his voice made me set aside my exhaustion. We'd sat in my living room, the modest space I decorated with thrift store finds and photographs of family gatherings, where I always seemed to be slightly out of frame. Marcus had aged since college, his football player physique softening, his hairline receding, but he was still the brother who'd once defended me from playground bullies, even if he'd stopped defending me from our family's subtler cruelties. "Charlotte and I set a date." He'd announced, his excitement genuine. "June 15th at Evergreen Estates. She's got her heart set on it." I'd congratulated him even as I felt the familiar twist in my stomach. Evergreen Estates, my first venue acquisition, the place where I'd personally planted every rose bush and restored every piece of vintage millwork. The thing is, Marcus had continued not meeting my eyes. "Weddings are expensive, more than we anticipated. Charlotte's family has money, but they believe the groom's side should contribute equally. And you know, Mom and Dad." Our parents lived comfortably but carefully. Richard Thompson ran a hardware store that had been in the family for 3 generations, and Catherine Thompson had a real estate license but rarely used it. They'd spent their savings sending Marcus to university, while I'd funded my own education. "How much do you need?" I'd asked already, knowing I'd give him whatever he asked. "It's not a gift," he'd said quickly. "It's a loan. Charlotte's father is connecting me with some investment opportunities. I'll pay you back with interest." The number he'd mentioned was $65,000. For the brother who'd once split his Halloween candy with me equally, even though I'd been too sick to trick or treat, I'd written the check without hesitation. "You're the best, Jaime," he'd said, hugging me. "I know things have been weird with the family lately, but you'll always be my little sister." Now, sitting in my office with Eleanor's emails flooding my inbox, I saw how naive I'd been. The correspondence painted a picture I'd been too blind to see. Charlotte's messages to Eleanor were revealing in their casual cruelty. "We need to revise the seating arrangements." One email read, "Marcus's sister's situation is complicated. She's sweet but socially awkward, and the Pemberton family guests are very particular about their company. Perhaps we could arrange a separate area." Another thread showed Marcus actively participating in the deception. "Jaime mentioned taking time off for the wedding. Can we handle this delicately? Maybe suggest the date has changed? We can't have her showing up unannounced." But it was the security footage that truly shattered my heart. Robert had pulled the files at my request, showing Marcus and Charlotte meeting with our parents at the Mayfair's private dining room. I had surveillance access to all my properties, something I'd never needed to use until now. The timestamp showed 3 weeks ago. They'd reserved the room under Charlotte's name, not realizing the hotel's security system would capture everything. I watched my family conspire against me in high definition. The Pembertons are very image-conscious, Charlotte was saying, her voice clear through the audio. Having an unmarried working-class relative at the main table would raise questions. Jaime's not working class, my mother had protested weakly. She has a good job. Coordinating other people's success isn't the same as having your own, Charlotte had replied. My father's business associates will be there. We can't have them thinking the Thompson family is varied in its achievements. My father had spoken up then. What do you want us to do? She's family. Family supports each other's happiness, Marcus had said, and hearing my brother speak Charlotte's words broke something inside me. Jaime would understand if we explained it right. She's always been understanding. They'd spent the next hour crafting their plan. They would tell me the wedding was postponed, then claim a last-minute date change made it impossible to include me. Charlotte suggested creating a special dinner afterwards where I could celebrate privately. The cruelty was in the details, the way they discussed managing me like I was a problem to be solved. We'll tell her the Pembertons have a family emergency that weekend, Catherine had suggested. Something that makes it impossible for extra guests. She's not an extra guest, I whispered to my empty office, watching my mother nod along. I'm your daughter. But the surveillance revealed more than just the invitation plot. In subsequent meetings, they'd discussed my financial contribution. Charlotte had done research showing Marcus printouts of what wedding services typically cost. Your sister was surprisingly generous, she'd said in one recording. 65,000 covers almost everything, though I wonder where she got that kind of money. You don't think she's in debt, do you? Jaime's always been good with money, Marcus had replied. She lives simply saves everything. Well, it works out perfectly, Charlotte had smiled. Her contribution means we can upgrade the honeymoon to Bora Bora. The Pembertons will be impressed. They'd laughed then, clinking champagne glasses in my hotel, toasting with champagne from my cellar, planning to use my money for a honeymoon I'd never know about because I wouldn't even be at the wedding. I paused the footage and walked to my window again. The city spread below me, thousands of lights beginning to twinkle in the approaching dusk. Somewhere down there, my brother was probably with Charlotte, maybe selecting wedding bands or attending another tasting at one of my competitors' venues. Did he ever feel guilty? Did he remember the sister who'd slipped him $20 bills in college when he was broke, who'd driven 6 hours to bring him soup when he had the flu his sophomore year? My phone rang. Eleanor again. Miss Thompson, I've sent everything as requested, but I feel I should inform you that Charlotte Pemberton has been very specific about the arrangements. She's what we call a challenging client. How so? She's had my staff in tears multiple times. She demands perfection but changes her mind constantly. Last week, she insisted we redo all the invitations because the font wasn't aristocratic enough. She's also been inquiring about your property's ownership structure. She asked several times about potential buyout opportunities. A chill ran down my spine. She asked about buying my venues. Not directly, but she mentioned that her father's investment firm might be interested in properties with potential. She wanted to know if the owners ever considered selling. I thanked Eleanor and ended the call, my mind racing. This wasn't just about excluding me from a wedding. Charlotte's interest in my properties combined with their plan to marginalize me suggested something more calculated. Did she know more than she let on? Was excluding me from the wedding just the first step in a larger plan? I called Robert back in. I need you to run a comprehensive background check on Charlotte Pemberton and her family. Financial records, business dealings, previous relationships, everything. Is this about the wedding situation? It's about protecting what I've built, I said, and finding out exactly what my brother has gotten himself into. As Robert left to begin his research, I opened my laptop and began my own investigation. The betrayal stung, but the businesswoman in me recognized a threat when I saw one. My brother might have forgotten the sister who'd always protected him, but I hadn't forgotten the skills that built my empire. If Charlotte Pemberton thought she could use my family against me while plotting to acquire my life's work, she was about to learn why I'd succeeded in an industry that crushed the weak. The game had begun, and they didn't even know they were playing. The summons came 3 days later in the form of my mother's cheerful voicemail. "Jaime, sweetheart, we're having family dinner on Sunday, 2 o'clock sharp. Don't be late, we have something special planned." I knew what was coming. The security footage from their planning sessions had shown them scheduling this exact meeting. They'd rehearsed their lines, assigned roles, even discussed where everyone should sit for maximum emotional manipulation. What they didn't know was that I'd be walking in, fully prepared for their performance. Sunday arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood as I drove to my parents' Colonial in Westchester. The house looked exactly as it had throughout my childhood. White siding with green shutters, my mother's prized roses blooming despite the weather. Marcus's new BMW was already in the driveway alongside Charlotte's white Mercedes. I parked my 10-year-old Honda Civic beside them, maintaining my cover even now. Catherine met me at the door, her smile too bright, her hug lasting a second too long. "Jaime, darling, you look tired. Are you taking care of yourself?" "Just busy with work, Mom." "Well, you work too hard. Come in, everyone's waiting." The living room scene was staged perfectly. Marcus and Charlotte sat together on the love seat, fingers intertwined. My father occupied his usual recliner, studying his hands. They'd even included Aunt Margaret and Uncle Paul as witnesses, presumably to add gravity to their announcement. Jaime, Charlotte stood air-kissing my cheeks. Her perfume was expensive, her dress designer, her smile practiced. "You look wonderful. Is that a new outfit?" I was wearing the same blazer I'd worn to every family gathering for 3 years. "Thanks. You look lovely as always." "Oh, this old thing." She smoothed down her dress, which probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Marcus spoils me terribly." We sat, and I noticed the coffee table held my mother's best china, the set reserved for major announcements, births, deaths, and apparently family betrayals. So, Catherine began settling beside my father. "We wanted to talk to you about the wedding." I sipped my tea, playing my part. "June 15th, right? I've already requested the time off." The discomfort in the room was palpable. Marcus cleared his throat, the same tell he'd had since childhood, when lying about who broke Mom's favorite vase. "Actually, that's what we need to discuss," he said. "There have been some changes." "Oh." Charlotte took over, her voice dripping with false concern. "My family has certain expectations, Jaime. You understand, don't you? The Pembertons move in very specific circles." "I'm not sure I do understand," I said mildly. "Could you explain?" She glanced at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. They'd clearly decided she should deliver the blow, probably thinking I'd accept it more readily from a non-family member. "Well, it's about image," Charlotte continued. "The wedding guests will include senators, CEOs, international investors, people who might not relate to everyone equally." "Are you saying I can't relate to successful people?" "Of course not," Catherine interjected. "It's just that, well, you're at a different life stage than Marcus and Charlotte." "A different life stage," I repeated, "because I'm not married." "It's more than that." Richard finally spoke, still not meeting my eyes. "The Pembertons have concerns about how our family presents itself. Charlotte's father has offered Marcus a position in his firm, but image matters in that world." "And I'm bad for your image." "Not bad," Marcus said quickly, "just different. You live alone, work in service, haven't really achieved the markers of success that their circle values." The irony was so thick I could have served it at one of my venues. Here they sat in a house with a 30-year-old kitchen and furniture from the previous decade, telling me about success markers while planning their wedding at my properties. "So, what are you saying?" I asked, though I knew exactly what came next. Charlotte reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "We've created a solution that works for everyone, a separate celebration just for you, a private dinner the week after the wedding, where you can share in our joy without the pressure of the main event." You're uninviting me from my brother's wedding. Reprioritizing, Charlotte corrected. Think of it as a gift. You won't have to worry about what to wear, who to bring, making small talk with people outside your comfort zone. That's very thoughtful, I said dryly. Margaret shifted uncomfortably. Jaime, dear, sometimes we have to make sacrifices for family happiness. Interesting perspective, Aunt Margaret. What sacrifices are Marcus and Charlotte making? Don't be difficult, Catherine said sharply. This is hard for everyone. Is it? I looked around the room. Everyone seems quite comfortable except me. That's exactly the attitude we're concerned about, Charlotte said. This defensiveness, this inability to see the bigger picture. My family would find it off-putting. I set down my teacup carefully. Tell me about this bigger picture. Marcus leaned forward using what he probably thought was his persuasive voice. Charlotte's father, James Pemberton. He's huge in private equity. This marriage opens doors for our entire family. The connections, the opportunities. It could change everything. For you, I noted, how does it change things for me? Rising tides lift all boats, Charlotte said smoothly. When Marcus succeeds, your family's status improves. Even if you're not directly involved, you benefit from the association. How generous! I benefit from association with my own brother. See, this is what we mean. Charlotte's mask slipped slightly. This bitterness, this jealousy, it's exactly why including you would be complicated. Charlotte. Marcus warned, but she was on a roll. No, she needs to hear this. Jaime, you're 32 years old. You live in a studio apartment, drive a car from the last decade, and spend your days arranging other people's celebrations. That's fine for you, but the Pembertons are different. They build things, create wealth-shaped society. Having you there single and struggling would raise questions we're not prepared to answer. Questions like why Marcus's family couldn't provide better for their daughter, like what genetic or social factors might have contributed to your situation. These aren't kind people, Jaime. They judge, and their judgment has consequences. My father flinched at the words genetic factors, but said nothing. My mother was studying her hands now, unable to meet my eyes. I see, I said calmly. And you've already told them about my absence. We had to give them a reason, Marcus admitted. We said you were in Europe. Europe. Studying art, Catherine added helpfully. We told them you're a talented artist who's finding herself abroad. How creative. And I suppose you have proof of this European art journey. Charlotte smiled triumphantly. Actually, we do. She pulled out her phone, showing me an Instagram account. We created this for you. See artistic shots of European landmarks, deep quotes about finding yourself. The Pembertons were actually impressed. They think it's bohemian and charming in a distant relative sort of way. I scrolled through the fake life they'd created for me. Pictures stolen from travel blogs, quotes from philosophy websites, a carefully curated fiction of the daughter they wished they had instead of the one sitting in their living room. You made me an entire fake identity. We made you interesting, Charlotte corrected. You should thank us. This version of you is invited to the wedding, even if just in spirit. How long have you been planning this? Since we got engaged, Marcus said at the same time Charlotte said, since I met you. They looked at each other, and in that moment, I saw the first crack in their united front. Which is it? I asked. When you got engaged 8 months ago, or when Charlotte met me over a year ago? Does it matter? Charlotte snapped. The point is, this is what's best for everyone. You avoid an uncomfortable situation, we maintain the image necessary for our future success. And the $65,000 I contributed, the room went silent. Charlotte's eyes narrowed. What contribution? I didn't mention that, I asked Marcus innocently. I lent Marcus $65,000 for your wedding. Surely he told you where the money came from. Marcus, Charlotte turned to him, voice dangerous. You said your parents. I said family, Marcus mumbled. Family contributed. And I'm family, I said. Or at least I was when you needed money. Richard stood abruptly. This is getting out of hand. Jaime, the decision is made. For the good of the family, for Marcus's future, you need to accept this. The good of the family, I repeated. Tell me, Dad, when did the good of the family become synonymous with Charlotte's comfort? When I became the ticket to a better life, Charlotte said coldly. Something you'd understand if you'd ever dated anyone worth keeping. The cruelty was so casual, so precisely aimed, that even Margaret gasped. But I'd watched them rehearse worse things on the security footage. You're right, I said, standing. I should understand my place. The unmarried daughter who works with her hands, lives modestly, and embarrasses you all by existing exactly as I am. Jaime, don't be dramatic, Catherine pleaded. We love you. This is just one day. One day that you're spending $65,000 of my money to exclude me from. About that, Charlotte said, recovering her composure. That money was given to Marcus, not the wedding. How he allocates family gifts is between us as a couple, and we've decided that maintaining our social standing is worth any cost. I looked at my brother, waiting for him to defend me, to show some spark of the boy who'd once shared his Halloween candy. But he just sat there, Charlotte's hand on his knee, his eyes fixed on the carpet. I understand, I said, finally. You've made your position clear. I won't embarrass you by fighting for an invitation to celebrate your union. Relief flooded the room. They'd won, or thought they had. Thank you for understanding, Charlotte said graciously. We knew you'd be reasonable once everything was explained. I smiled then, the kind of smile I'd learned in boardrooms when closing deals that would destroy competitors. Of course, family supports each other's happiness after all. As I drove away from my parents' house, leaving them to toast their successful manipulation, I thought about the calls I'd be making Monday morning. They wanted to exclude me from the wedding at my own venues paid for with my money, while creating elaborate lies about who I was. Fine. They were about to learn that the fictional European artist they'd invented was far less dangerous than the real woman they'd dismissed. The family meeting from hell was over, but their real education was about to begin. Robert's research proved more illuminating than I'd anticipated. By Monday afternoon, my desk was covered with reports that painted a disturbing picture of Charlotte Pemberton and her family's operations. What emerged wasn't just social climbing or snobbery, but something far more calculated. The Pembertons are hemorrhaging money. Robert explained, adjusting his glasses as he walked me through the financials. James Pemberton's private equity firm looks successful on paper, but they're leveraged beyond belief. They've been acquiring distressed assets with borrowed capital, hoping for quick flips that haven't materialized. How bad? They need a major win in the next quarter or they'll lose everything. Their lifestyle, the houses, the social standing, all of it is built on credit and reputation. I studied the documents. The Pemberton Family Trust owned multiple properties, but each was mortgaged to the maximum. Their investment accounts showed a pattern of increasingly desperate trades. They were wealthy in appearance, only a house of cards waiting for the slightest breeze. There's more, Robert continued. I had our IT security team do a deep dive on Charlotte's digital footprint. She's been researching your company extensively, but not through the public-facing websites. She's been using back channels, industry databases, even hired a private investigator. When did this start? 6 months before she met Marcus. Boss, I don't think your brother was a random romantic encounter. The timeline suggests Charlotte targeted him specifically after learning about your connection. My blood chilled. She knew who I was before they even met. Look at this. Robert pulled up a screenshot from a hospitality industry forum. 3 months before meeting Marcus, someone using an IP address traced to Charlotte's apartment asked detailed questions about Meridian Hospitality Group's ownership structure. When no one provided specifics, the same user asked about family connections to various event planning businesses in the city. The pieces clicked into place. Charlotte hadn't fallen for my brother and then discovered his embarrassing sister. She'd researched me, first identified Marcus as my weakness, and pursued him strategically. But how did she know about my connection to the company I've been so careful? Robert smiled grimly. You were, but you made one mistake. Remember the Hartley Foundation Gala 2 years ago? You accepted their Entrepreneur of the Year award. I remembered. It had been a small ceremony industry, insiders only. I'd accepted the award on behalf of Meridian Hospitality Group, never mentioning my last name. Charlotte's cousin was at that gala, Robert explained. Penelope Ashford, the lifestyle blogger. She wrote a brief post about inspiring women in hospitality. She didn't use your full name, but she mentioned that the winner was a young woman who started as a dishwasher and built an empire while supporting her family. She called you an invisible guardian angel to those she loves. Charlotte connected the dots. More than that, look at this email chain. The emails were between Charlotte and someone named Victoria Lang, dated 8 months ago. Charlotte. Confirmed. Jaime Thompson owns everything through Meridian. Brother is Marcus' parents are Richard and Catherine. Classic old money-poor scenario. They have no idea what she's worth. Victoria, perfect. How's the approach? Charlotte. Meeting Marcus tomorrow at his gym. Did my research. He's vain, insecure about his fading glory days, desperate to prove himself. Should be easy. Victoria and the sister. Charlotte. Textbook imposter syndrome. Hides her success, probably feels guilty about surpassing her family. We can use that. Make her feel excluded, unworthy. She'll hand over whatever we need to keep the peace. Victoria, brilliant. The venues alone are worth $40 million. If you can get her to sell cheap to help her brother. Charlotte, please. By the time I'm done, she'll be begging to sell just to stay in the family's good graces. These types always choose family approval over business sense. I had to set the papers down, my hands shaking with rage. Every moment, every interaction had been a lie. Charlotte hadn't just manipulated Marcus, she'd performed a character analysis on our entire family and crafted her approach accordingly. Who's Victoria Lang? I asked. Charlotte's business partner. They run a consulting firm that specializes in distressed asset acquisition. Their model is to identify family-owned businesses where succession planning is weak or family dynamics are complicated. They insert themselves through marriage or partnership, create discord, then acquire the assets during the chaos. This is what they do. This is their business model. It's worked 3 times before. A hotel chain in Miami, a restaurant group in Boston, an entertainment complex in Dallas. Each time Charlotte or Victoria married into the family, created conflict between siblings or generations, and emerged with controlling interest in the business. I pulled up Charlotte's social media, seeing her history with new eyes. The photos from Miami 3 years ago, Boston 2 years ago, Dallas last year, different men on her arm at each location, all from prominent business families. How many brothers had she turned against sisters? How many families had she destroyed for profit? The Dallas situation was particularly cruel, Robert noted. She married the eldest son, convinced him his younger brother was embezzling, got them to dissolve the partnership. The family business collapsed. She divorced him, and Victoria's firm bought the assets for pennies on the dollar. The brothers haven't spoken since. And now she's here for mine. The wedding venue, the catering company, the hotel chain together, they're worth at least $40 million, possibly more with your recent expansions. For the Pembertons, acquiring even one would solve their financial crisis. I stood and paced to the window, processing this information. Below, the city hummed with life, unaware of the predator in its midst. Charlotte hadn't just insulted me or excluded me. She'd marked me as prey. My family, my brother, they were just tools in her acquisition strategy. There's something else, Robert said hesitantly. The security footage you had me review, I found something odd. Charlotte's been meeting with someone at your properties when she thinks no one's watching. He pulled up the footage on his tablet. There was Charlotte at the Mayfair Hotel, but not in the public spaces. She was in the service corridors, the back office's areas guests wouldn't normally access. She was with a man in a suit, pointing at structural elements, discussing something intently. Who is he? Thomas Brennan, commercial real estate appraiser. He specializes in hostile valuations, the kind used in forced sales or bankruptcy proceedings. She's already appraising my properties for takeover. It gets worse. Remember Eleanor Hastings, the wedding planner? Charlotte's been pressing her for information about the ownership structure. Eleanor's been professional, but Charlotte's gotten aggressive. She's threatened Eleanor's reputation if she doesn't provide inside information about your business operations. I thought about Eleanor's nervous voice on our calls, the way she'd mentioned Charlotte being a challenging client. She'd been protecting me while under threat herself. "Boss," Robert said carefully, "what do you want to do? We could go to the police, but technically Charlotte hasn't committed a crime yet. Manipulation isn't illegal." "No," I said slowly, "but fraud is. Marrying someone under false pretenses to steal their family's assets, using that marriage to attempt a hostile takeover, those cross lines." "You want me to contact legal—" "Not yet. First I want to know everything. Every person she's contacted, every document she's accessed, every plan she's made. And I want to know about Victoria Lang's other victims. Maybe they'd like to know their family destructions weren't random tragedies, but calculated attacks." Robert nodded, gathering his files. "I'll get our full team on it. Charlotte Pemberton picked the wrong family to target." After he left, I sat alone in my office as afternoon faded to evening. Outside lights began twinkling across the city, each one representing dreams and ambitions not so different from mine. I'd built my empire to protect and provide for my family, to be their invisible guardian angel. Now that same family was being used against me by a woman who saw love as a weapon and trust as a weakness. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Marcus's number. Part of me wanted to call him immediately to warn him about the woman sharing his bed and planning his future, but I stopped. Would he believe me? Or would Charlotte spin it as jealous sister syndrome proof that I was trying to sabotage his happiness? No, I needed more than evidence. I needed Charlotte to reveal herself, and I needed my family to see it happen. The wedding she'd orchestrated at my venues would indeed be memorable, just not in the way she planned. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a message that made my blood run cold. "Stop investigating or your brother learns about your little empire the hard way. Imagine his face when he realizes his struggling sister has been playing poverty while sitting on millions. The betrayal might just break him. Or maybe we'll let him think you've been laughing at him all along, funding his wedding like throwing coins to a beggar. Your choice." C. So Charlotte knew I was onto her. Good. Let her think threats would work on someone who'd built an empire from dishwater and determination. She'd studied my family, but she'd made one crucial error. She'd assumed the quiet sister who hid her success was weak, that family approval mattered more to me than justice. She was about to learn that the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fires, and I'd been burning for 32 years. The bride had revealed her secret agenda, but mine was just beginning. The next morning, I arrived at my office before dawn, energized by cold fury and hot coffee. Charlotte's threat had backfired spectacularly. Instead of cowering, I felt the same fierce determination that had driven me from dishwasher to empire builder. If she wanted to play corporate warfare, she'd chosen the wrong opponent. My first call was to Eleanor Hastings. "Eleanor, this is Jaime Thompson. I need you to come to my office this morning. Bring every contract, every email, every note regarding the Thompson-Pemberton wedding." "Miss Thompson, Charlotte specifically instructed me not to communicate with any Thompson family members except through her." "Eleanor, I own Evergreen Estates, Golden Spoon Catering, and the Mayfair Hotel Collection. You work for my companies, not Charlotte Pemberton. I'll send a car for you." The silence stretched before Eleanor whispered, "Thank God. I've been documenting everything, hoping someone would stop this. She's been making my staff cry daily. Yesterday, she demanded we fire Maria because her accent wasn't refined enough for the reception. Maria, who's worked for me for 8 years, absolutely not. We'll discuss everything when you arrive." My next call was to James Morrison, my head of legal. "Jim, I need you to review all contracts for the Thompson-Pemberton wedding. Look for any irregularities, any attempts to claim ownership or control beyond standard event agreements. Already on it, boss. Got a call from building security last night. Someone tried to access our corporate filing room after hours using an old contractor's pass. Want to guess who that contractor worked for? The Pemberton Group. Bingo. They're getting desperate. Also, I've been fielding calls from someone claiming to be a family representative, demanding access to your personal financial records. Says it's for wedding gift tax purposes. Creative, but completely illegal. After ending the call, I stood at my window watching the sunrise paint the city gold. Somewhere out there, Charlotte was probably in my brother's bed, whispering poison in his ear, unaware that her carefully constructed plan was already crumbling. Eleanor arrived within the hour, wheeling in 2 boxes of documentation. Her usually immaculate appearance showed strain, her eyes shadowed with sleepless nights. "She's a nightmare," Eleanor said without preamble. "But it's calculated. Every cruel demand, every impossible request, it's all designed to make us quit, so she can claim breach of contract." "Show me everything." We spread the documents across my conference table. What emerged was a pattern of escalating demands and subtle contractual manipulations. Charlotte had insisted on addendums that gave her consultation rights on venue improvements, menu development, even staffing decisions. Individually, they seemed like bridezilla perfectionism. Together, they painted a picture of someone trying to establish operational control. "Look at this clause." Eleanor pointed to a paragraph in tiny print. She wanted the right to suggest operational improvements that would be implemented for all future events. My assistant caught it and removed it, but Charlotte threw a fit, claiming we were sabotaging her special day. "What else?" "She's been photographing everything. Not normal wedding planning photos, but infrastructure stuff. Loading docks, service entrances, employee areas. She claimed it was for security purposes, but one of my staff saw her measuring doorways and taking notes about our delivery schedules. I was studying a particularly aggressive contract revision when Robert knocked and entered his face grim. "Boss, we have a problem. Charlotte's accelerating her timeline. She just had Marcus add her as a co-signer on several accounts, including the one containing your $65,000 deposit." "How do you know this?" "Remember Tom Bradley from Boston, one of Charlotte's previous victims? He's been helping us track her patterns. She always gets financial access right before she strikes. Also, Marcus just applied for a massive line of credit using his upcoming position in the Pemberton Group as collateral." "What position?" "The one that doesn't exist. I checked with my contacts. James Pemberton has no intention of hiring Marcus. It's all smoke and mirrors to get him financially vulnerable." Eleanor gasped. "She's going to destroy him." "That's her pattern," Robert confirmed. "Romance them, isolate them from family, get them into debt, then abandon them when the family assets are secured. The men she targets never recover financially or emotionally." My phone rang. It was Catherine, my mother, sobbing. "Jaime, something terrible has happened. Charlotte says you're trying to destroy the wedding. She has emails showing you're canceling their contracts out of spite. Marcus is devastated. How could you do this?" "Mom, I haven't canceled anything. I'm reviewing contracts, which is my right as the owner." "Owner? What are you talking about?" "Jaime, stop lying. Charlotte showed us proof that you've been pretending to be some big businesswoman, probably to impress us. It's embarrassing enough without you making up stories." The line went dead. Charlotte had anticipated my moves and struck first, painting me as a delusional sister, creating fantasies about owning wedding venues. Clever, but she'd revealed her hand too early. "Eleanor," I said calmly, though rage burned in my chest, "I want you to send an official memo to all staff at all 3 venues. Charlotte Pemberton and any associates are now on the watch list. They're not to access any areas beyond public spaces without direct supervision. If they resist, security should escort them out." "With pleasure. Should I inform them about the wedding status?" "The wedding remains scheduled for now, but implement Protocol 7 for all their events." Eleanor smiled for the first time. Protocol 7 was our highest level of documentation, recording every interaction, every request, every movement. It was usually reserved for events with political figures or contentious divorces. Every second of Charlotte's presence would be recorded and archived. My phone buzzed with rapid-fire texts from Marcus. "How dare you? Charlotte warned me you might get jealous, but this is sick. Claiming you own Evergreen Estates, really? Stay away from my wedding and my fiancé. You need help, Jaime, professional help." I didn't respond. Let him vent. The truth would hit harder when he couldn't claim I'd manipulated him into seeing it. "Boss," Robert interrupted, "you need to see this. Charlotte just posted on Instagram." The post was a masterpiece of manipulation. A photo of her crying makeup artfully smudged with a long caption about dealing with family members who can't handle others' happiness and the pain of watching mental illness destroy someone you're trying to welcome into your family. The comments were already flooding in with support for the brave bride dealing with her unstable future sister-in-law. "She's establishing a narrative," I said. "Poor Charlotte, victim of the jealous spinster sister." What do? We give her exactly what she wants, complete access to plan her perfect wedding at my venues, every request granted, every demand met, and we document every second of it. Eleanor looked confused. "But won't that help her?" "She thinks I'll react. Emotionally, cancel everything, prove her right about the bitter sister. Instead, I'll be the perfect vendor, professional, accommodating, invisible. She'll get overconfident, push harder, reveal more of her true nature. And then we let her hang herself with her own rope. Robert, I want you to contact Tom Bradley and the other victims. Invite them to be my personal guests at the wedding. Tell them they'll get to witness Charlotte's final performance." "You're inviting her exes to the wedding." "I'm inviting fellow survivors to watch justice being served. Also contact the 3 wedding magazines that cover society events. Tell them the Pemberton-Thompson wedding will be the most talked about event of the season. Guarantee them exclusive access." As my team scattered to implement our counterattack, I remained at my window. Charlotte thought she was directing this drama, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail: the stage she'd chosen for her performance. I built it, I owned it, and I knew every secret passage, hidden microphone, and security camera. She wanted to exclude me from my brother's wedding while stealing my life's work. Fine. I'd give her the wedding of the century. It just wouldn't end the way she planned. My phone rang again. This time it was Charlotte herself. "Hello, Charlotte." "You pathetic little mouse," she hissed, abandoning all pretense. "Did you really think you could stop this? I've been doing this for years. I know exactly how to handle jealous sisters." "I'm not trying to stop anything. Your wedding will proceed as planned." "Don't play games with me. I know you're behind the security restrictions and the staff surveillance. Standard protocol for high-profile events. You said yourself the Pembertons are very important people. We're simply ensuring their safety and comfort. You think you're clever, but you're just postponing the inevitable. By the time I'm done, Marcus won't just uninvite you from the wedding. He'll sign over his share of any family assets to keep you away from us. And when I own those venues you're pretending are yours, I'll ban you from ever setting foot in them again." "Is that all? You're not even going to deny it? Not going to cry and beg for your brother's love? Why would I? You seem to have everything figured out. I'll see you at the next planning meeting. Eleanor tells me you want to review the catering menu again." Yes, Tuesday at 2. And Jaime, come alone and broken or don't come at all." She hung up, probably frustrated by my calm response. Let her stew. The bride who specialized in destroying families was about to learn what happened when you attacked someone who'd spent their entire life protecting theirs. The unraveling had begun, but it wasn't my composure coming apart. It was Charlotte's carefully woven web of lies, and I held every thread. Family wars are never contained to the primary combatants. Like wildfire, they spread through phone trees and Sunday dinners, forcing everyone to choose sides. By Tuesday evening, the extended Thompson clan was fully engulfed in the drama Charlotte had orchestrated. The first call came from my cousin Grace, the one I'd quietly supported through medical school. Her voice was shaking with anger, but not at me. "Jaime, I just got the most disgusting phone call from Aunt Catherine. She actually asked me to talk sense into you about your delusions of grandeur." Delusions. "You paid for my entire third year when Dad lost his job. You think I don't know where those anonymous scholarship funds came from?" "Grace, you don't need to get involved." "The hell I don't. Do you know what Charlotte told everyone at last week's family dinner? She said you've been stalking her, showing up at wedding venues claiming to be the owner. She actually used the word unhinged, and Marcus just sat there nodding along like a trained seal." I set down my pen, abandoning the contract I'd been reviewing. "What else did she say?" "Oh, it gets better. She suggested the family stage an intervention. She had brochures for treatment facilities that specialize in delusional disorders. She's convinced half the family you're having a mental breakdown because you can't handle Marcus finding happiness." The cruelty was breathtaking, but tactical. By suggesting mental illness, Charlotte created a framework where any defense I mounted could be dismissed as further proof of instability. Who believed her? The usual suspects. Aunt Margaret's eating it up, loves having drama that isn't about her kids for once. Uncle Paul's on the fence, but you know him goes wherever Margaret points. But Jaime, cousin Michael, called bullshit immediately. Michael, the accountant who'd noticed discrepancies in our grandfather's estate years ago. Discrepancies I'd quietly resolved without fanfare. He said Charlotte's story didn't add up. Grace continued. "Why would someone having delusions be so specific? Why venues, catering, and hotels?" He asked Marcus for details about the wedding planning. And you know what? Marcus couldn't answer basic questions about his own wedding. Didn't know the venue capacity, the menu selections, nothing. Charlotte handles everything, he said. Of course she does. So Michael did some digging. Public records, Jaime. He found the connection between you and Meridian Hospitality Group. He hasn't told anyone else yet, wanted to talk to you first. My phone buzzed with another call. Michael himself. "Gracie filling you in?" he asked without preamble when I switched over. "Good. Listen, I've been looking into the Pembertons. That family is broke, Jaime. Completely leveraged. But here's the interesting part. There's a pattern of settlements in their financial history. Quiet payoffs from families in Miami, Boston, Dallas. Want to guess the common denominator? Charlotte's ex-husbands. Bingo. These families paid to make her go away. But here's what Grace doesn't know yet. I found something else. Victoria Lang Charlotte's business partner. She's her sister. They're running a con game, Jaime. Has been for years. My blood chilled. Sisters working together to destroy other siblings. The irony was razor sharp. "I need you to document everything you found," I said. "But Michael, be careful. They're dangerous when cornered." "Already ahead of you. Made copies of everything stored in multiple locations. Question is, what do you want me to do with it?" "Nothing yet. Let them think they're winning, but be ready." After ending the call, I found 17 missed calls from various family members. The battle lines were being drawn. I called Grace back. "I need you to do something for me," I said. "Remember my friend Tom Bradley from Boston? He's going to reach out to you. Listen to his story. Then decide if you want to share it with the family." "Who is he?" "Someone who survived what Charlotte's trying to do to Marcus." The next morning, I arrived at Evergreen Estates for the catering review Charlotte had demanded. She was already there holding court in the tasting room with 6 family members she'd recruited as flying monkeys. Aunt Margaret, Uncle Paul, Catherine's sister, Linda, and 3 cousins who'd always resented my quiet success. "Jaime." Charlotte smiled poisonously. "So glad you could join us. I was just explaining to your family how concerning your behavior has become." I took a seat at the far end of the table, nodding politely to Maria, who was setting up the tasting plates, despite Charlotte's previous attempt to have her fired. "We're worried about you," Aunt Linda said, using her concerned therapist voice. "Charlotte's shown us the emails, the threats. This isn't like you, dear." "What emails?" Charlotte produced a folder with theatrical flair. Inside were printed emails supposedly from me, filled with rambling threats and bizarre claims. The forgeries were good but not perfect. Wrong email address language. I'd never used technical details about the venues that were slightly off. "I didn't write these," I said simply. "Of course you'd say that," Margaret chimed in. "Denial is the first stage. Charlotte, you're so patient to continue planning despite this harassment." "Family is family," Charlotte said sweetly. "I just want Jaime to get the help she needs." Maria began serving the tasting courses. Charlotte had demanded 13 different menu options, each more elaborate than the last. The costs were astronomical, all covered by my $65,000 loan to Marcus. "This salmon is overcooked," Charlotte announced, though it was perfect. "And the sauce tastes cheap. Are you sure this is the premium option?" Maria's face remained neutral, but I saw her hands tighten. This woman had cooked for senators and celebrities, earning rave reviews. Charlotte's criticism was purely performative, establishing dominance. "Perhaps we should consider outside catering," Charlotte mused. "I know the owner here claims to maintain standards, but clearly that's slipping." "You've met the owner?" I asked innocently. Charlotte's eyes flashed. "Not personally. She's apparently too important to meet with clients directly. Typical nouveau riche behavior, wouldn't you say, Linda?" Before Linda could respond, the door opened. Grace entered, followed by someone I hadn't expected. Our grandmother's sister, Great-Aunt Helen. The family matriarch everyone forgot still owned 15% of the family hardware store. "Helen." Charlotte stood clearly thrown. "We weren't expecting you." "Evidently," Helen said dryly, her 90-year-old frame still commanding respect. "Grace told me there was family business being discussed. At my age, I don't wait for invitations." Helen took a seat beside me, patting my hand. She'd always seen through family pretenses, probably why she lived 3 states away. "Now then," Helen continued, "I understand there's some concern about Jaime's mental health based on what evidence exactly." Charlotte launched into her prepared speech about delusions and harassment. Helen listened occasionally, sampling the food with apparent pleasure. When Charlotte finished, Helen was quiet for a long moment. "Interesting," she finally said. "Margaret, you believe your niece is delusional." "The evidence is clear," Margaret said uncomfortably. "She claims to own these venues." "Paul, you agree?" "Well, Charlotte's shown us proof." "What proof these emails that could be written by anyone? This hearsay about behavior, none of you have witnessed directly." Aunt Helen, Charlotte, interjected smoothly. "I understand your loyalty to family, but Jaime needs professional help. Her fantasies are disrupting wedding planning and causing Marcus tremendous stress." "Is that so? Where is Marcus, by the way? Shouldn't the groom be at his own menu tasting?" "He trusts me to handle these details." "How convenient. A man who trusts you completely can't answer questions about his own wedding and whose sister suddenly develops mental illness when she questions your intentions. Tell me, Miss Pemberton, in your previous engagements, did the groom's families also develop sudden psychological issues?" The room went silent. Charlotte's mask slipped for just a second, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Grace's friend, Tom Bradley, told quite an interesting story about his brother's engagement to you in Boston. Similar pattern. Sister, who asked too many questions, suddenly labeled unstable family, turned against her. Difference is, she didn't have the resources to fight back." Grace pulled out her phone. "Tom sent me the settlement agreement his family signed. $300,000 to make Charlotte go away after she'd already taken half their business." "That's a lie," Charlotte snarled, then caught herself. "I mean, that's a misunderstanding. Tom's family had issues long before I met them." "Really?" Helen asked. "What about the Reeves family in Dallas? The Ashfords in Miami? All misunderstandings." Charlotte stood abruptly. "I don't have to listen to this persecution. Come on, Catherine, we're leaving." My mother hesitated, torn between the daughter she'd failed and the future in-law who promised social elevation. Charlotte made the choice for her. Fine, stay here with your pathetic daughter and senile aunt. When Marcus cuts you all off, remember you chose her over us. She stormed out, but not before I caught her sending a text. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages from Marcus, each more vitriolic than the last. The family members who'd come with Charlotte looked shell-shocked, unsure whether to follow or stay. "Aunt Linda," I said quietly, "check the metadata on those emails Charlotte showed you. Any first-year computer science student could tell you they're fake." Linda pulled out her laptop, her therapist facade cracking as her technical skills took over. Within minutes, her face had gone pale. They were all created yesterday from the same IP address, not even a good forgery. "Margaret," I turned to my aunt, "you've known me 32 years. Have I ever even once shown signs of mental instability?" "No," she admitted reluctantly, "but Charlotte says a lot of things. The question is why you believed a stranger over family." Helen stood leaning on her cane. "I've seen enough." "Grace, dear, set up that meeting with young Mr. Bradley. I think the family needs to hear his full story. And Jaime." She turned to me with a knowing smile. "Next time you want to remain anonymous while helping family use better lawyers. I've known about your little empire for years." As the room erupted in questions and exclamations, I felt the tide beginning to turn. Charlotte had overplayed her hand, assuming the Thompson family bonds were too weak to withstand her assault. She'd studied our dysfunction, but missed our deeper truth. We might fight among ourselves, but when truly threatened, we protected our own. The cousins were choosing sides, and for the first time, they were choosing mine. The Greater Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce monthly meeting was the city's premier networking event where real power brokers shaped policy over champagne and canapes. Charlotte's father, James Pemberton, never missed one. Neither did I, though most attendees knew me only as the mysterious force behind Meridian Hospitality Group. This month's meeting would be different. I arrived early at the Riverside Conference Center, greeting the staff who'd catered hundreds of my events. They smiled knowingly. Word traveled fast in the hospitality world, and everyone knew Charlotte Pemberton had been making their colleagues' lives miserable. "Table 12 as usual, Miss Thompson," Gerard, the venue manager, asked. "Actually, Gerard, I'll be at table 1 today, the speaker's table." His eyes widened. In 5 years of attendance, I'd never taken a prominent position, preferring to observe from the periphery. "Of course. And your presentation materials?" "Already in place, thank you." I'd spent the previous night preparing a presentation that would serve multiple purposes, announcing Meridian's new charitable initiative, showcasing our market position, and letting James Pemberton know exactly who his daughter had targeted. The room filled quickly with the city's business elite. I watched James enter, his swagger diminished by recent financial pressures. He still projected wealth, but those of us who could read the signs saw the strain in his tailored suits, slightly outdated cut the way he nursed a single drink instead of buying rounds. Jaime Thompson. I turned to find David Chen, CEO of Chen International Hotels, my biggest competitor and occasional collaborator. "David, good to see you." "Is it true?" he asked without preamble. "Charlotte Pemberton is trying to force a hostile takeover of Meridian." "Where did you hear that?" "She approached my acquisitions team last week, wanted to know if we'd be interested in a distressed asset opportunity involving premier wedding venues. Claimed the owner was having personal problems that would force a quick sale." "What did you tell her?" "That I don't do business with vultures. Also that anyone who thinks Meridian Hospitality would be an easy target doesn't understand the market. Or you." "I appreciate that, David." "Don't thank me yet. She's shopping your properties to everyone. The Blackstone Group, Hilton, even some offshore investors. She's poisoning the well, Jaime, making people think you're unstable, that Meridian is vulnerable." As if on cue, Charlotte entered on Marcus's arm. She dressed for impact in a designer suit that screamed new money, dragging my brother through her power play. Marcus looked uncomfortable, tugging at his tie, clearly out of his element among actual business leaders. Our eyes met across the room. Charlotte smiled triumphantly, no doubt thinking she'd scored points by appearing at my professional sanctuary. She had no idea she'd walked into my trap. "Ladies and gentlemen, if we could take our seats," the chamber president announced. "We have a special presentation today from one of our most successful yet private members." I made my way to the podium as the lights dimmed. Behind me, the screen displayed the Meridian Hospitality Group logo. "Good evening. I'm Jaime Thompson, founder and CEO of Meridian Hospitality Group." The reaction was immediate. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as people connected the woman they'd seen quietly networking for years with the company that had revolutionized the city's hospitality industry. At table 3, James Pemberton's face went through a spectacular journey from confusion to recognition to horror. "Today I want to announce the Meridian Foundation, a new initiative designed to protect family-owned businesses from predatory practices." I clicked to the first slide showing statistics about family business failures. 70% of family businesses fail during transition to the second generation. But here's what the statistics don't capture: how many of those failures are orchestrated by outside parties who specifically target family divisions for profit. Another click. The screen showed anonymized case studies from Miami, Boston, and Dallas. Without naming Charlotte, I laid out the pattern. Mysterious romantic partner appears, family conflicts escalate, business assets get transferred under duress, family is left destroyed while predators profit. The Meridian Foundation will provide legal resources, counseling, and strategic support to families facing these sophisticated attacks. We'll also create a database tracking known predatory actors, sharing information to protect vulnerable businesses. I caught Charlotte's expression. Her poise had cracked, replaced by barely controlled rage. Beside her, Marcus looked confused, still not connecting the dots. "Some might wonder why this matters to me personally," I continued. "The truth is, family businesses are built on trust, and when that trust is weaponized against them, entire communities suffer. The hardware store that's been serving neighbors for 3 generations, the restaurant where families celebrate milestones, the venues where memories are made. These aren't just assets on a balance sheet. They're the heartbeat of our communities." The presentation continued with financial projections and partnership opportunities. But my real audience was at table 3, where James Pemberton was having an animated, whispered conversation with his daughter. Charlotte kept shaking her head, but her father's expression grew darker with each denial. In closing, I said, "I want to address something personal. My brother Marcus is getting married next month. His wedding will be held at Evergreen Estates, catered by Golden Spoon, with guests staying at the Mayfair Hotel. Some have questioned how a simple event coordinator's sister could afford such luxury venues." I clicked to the final slide, a photo montage showing my journey from dishwasher to CEO, including pictures of me working in kitchens, signing property deeds, and shaking hands with industry leaders. The answer is simple. I built them. Every garden path at Evergreen, every signature dish at Golden Spoon, every luxury suite at the Mayfair exists because I believe that celebrating life's moments should be extraordinary. And despite recent complications, I remain committed to making my brother's wedding everything he dreamed of. The applause was thunderous. As I returned to my seat, business leaders approached with congratulations and partnership proposals. But I watched Charlotte excuse herself, practically dragging Marcus toward the exit. David Chen intercepted them at the door, his voice carrying. "Ms. Pemberton, I wanted to discuss your inquiry about distressed hospitality assets. I assume that's no longer relevant given tonight's presentation." Charlotte's reply was inaudible, but her body language screamed defeat. Marcus looked between them, confusion giving way to suspicion. Masterfully done. Helen Kravitz, the city's most powerful commercial banker, murmured beside me, "Though I suspect the fireworks are just beginning." She was right. My phone buzzed with texts from Robert. Charlotte's leaving angry voicemails for her contacts. James Pemberton just called his lawyer. Marcus is in the parking lot on the phone with Grace. Charlotte's sister Victoria just booked a flight to town. Indeed, I replied to Helen. But now it's in the open. No more hiding, no more whispered lies. If Charlotte wants my family's business, she'll have to take it in full view of everyone who matters. And your brother? I watched through the window as Marcus sat in his car, head in his hands, while Charlotte gestured wildly beside him. He's about to learn the difference between real love and a business acquisition. The question is whether he'll accept the truth or double down on the lie. In my experience, Helen said, people rarely thank you for saving them from themselves, but you're not doing this for thanks, are you? No, I admitted. I'm doing it because that's what family does. We protect each other even when they don't know they need protecting, even when they think we're the enemy. The meeting continued around us, but the real meeting was happening in the parking lot where Charlotte's mask was finally slipping in front of the one person who needed to see her true face. The business power play had worked perfectly, but the game was far from over. Charlotte Pemberton had come to my city thinking she could destroy another family business. Instead, she'd awakened a protector who'd spent her entire life preparing for this battle. The question now wasn't whether she'd lose, but how much damage she'd inflict on her way down. The doorbell at my penthouse rang at 11:47 p.m., 3 nights after the Chamber of Commerce revelation. Through the security monitor, I saw Catherine Thompson, my mother standing in the private elevator vestibule. She was alone, soaked from the unexpected autumn rain and clutching something to her chest. I'd lived in this building for 3 years. She'd never visited. Mom! I opened the door, genuinely shocked. How did you even know where I live? Helen gave me the address, she said, her voice hollow. May I come in? I stepped aside, watching her take in the space she'd never seen. The floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city's skyline, the original artwork I'd collected, the baby grand piano I played when insomnia struck. This wasn't the studio apartment she'd imagined her struggling daughter inhabiting. My God, she whispered, it's beautiful. Can I get you something, tea wine? Wine, please, the strongest you have. I poured us both glasses of a 20-year-old Bordeaux, a gift from the French ambassador, after I'd hosted his daughter's wedding. Catherine sat on my sofa like she might break it, still clutching what I now saw was a manila folder. I went to Evergreen Estates today, she began without preamble. Charlotte didn't know. I told her I was at my book club, but I had to see for myself if what you said at the chamber meeting was true. And Gerard, the manager, he recognized me immediately. Mrs. Thompson, he said, Ms. Jaime will be so pleased you finally visited. He gave me a tour, Mom. Told me how you personally restored every piece of that Victorian mansion, how you salvaged the original chandeliers from an estate sale, how you planted the rose garden yourself because you remembered me saying roses were wedding flowers. Her voice cracked on the last words. I stayed silent, letting her process what she'd learned. Then he showed me your office. Your actual office, not the small one you described. There were photos on your desk, family photos. That Christmas when Marcus broke his arm the summer at the late Dad's 50th birthday party. You kept us close even when you pushed me away. She flinched but nodded. The staff, they all spoke about you with such respect. Maria from catering told me how you sponsored her daughter's citizenship application. The housekeeping manager mentioned you paid for his son's cancer treatment. Story after story of the daughter I apparently never knew. You knew me, I said quietly. You just didn't want to see me. Because seeing you meant seeing my own failures. The admission seemed to physically pain her. Do you want to know the truth? The real reason I've been so cruel? I waited. When you were 16, working in that restaurant, you came home one night glowing. You'd been promoted to prep cook. You were so excited talking about maybe owning a restaurant someday. And I laughed. I said Thompson women don't work in kitchens. We marry well and raise families. Do you remember what you said? That maybe it was time for Thompson women to write new stories. Yes, and I knew in that moment you were going to leave us all behind. Not physically, but in every way that mattered. You'd outgrow us, outshine us. make our small lives look even smaller by comparison. So I tried to keep you small. God forgive me. I tried to dim your light because it hurt my eyes." She set down her wine with shaking hands and opened the folder. After the chamber meeting, Charlotte came to the house. She was furious, ranting about how you'd humiliated her. But she let something slip. She mentioned Victoria, her business partner. The name sounded familiar, so I did something I haven't done in years. I investigated. She pulled out printed pages. Victoria Lang is really Victoria Pemberton, Charlotte's sister. They've been running this con for years, but that's not the worst part. What could be worse? Charlotte is still married. Catherine's eyes met mine. To a man named Christopher Walsh in Miami. They never divorced. This whole wedding to Marcus. It's bigamy. It's fraud. It's illegal. The room spun slightly. Of all the things I'd expected, this wasn't it. I confronted her, Catherine continued. Privately, when Marcus was at work. She didn't deny it. She laughed, said divorce was expensive and unnecessary when you never planned to stay married long. Said Marcus was just a stepping stone to your properties anyway. Did you tell Marcus? I tried. But here's the truly evil part. She's been drugging him. Xanax in his morning coffee, Ambien in his evening wine. She showed me the bottles prescribed to her under another name, said it keeps him manageable and agreeable. My son, my baby boy, has been walking around in a medicated fog for months, and I didn't even notice. She broke down, then sobbing like I hadn't seen since my grandfather's funeral. I moved beside her awkwardly, patting her shoulder. We'd lost the muscle memory of comfort between us. There's more, she gasped between sobs. She threatened me, said if I interfered, she'd make sure Marcus overdosed and make it look self-inflicted. Said she'd done it before in Boston when things got complicated. I didn't know what to do, so I came here. To you, the daughter I've failed in every possible way. We need to go to the police. With what proof? She's too careful. The prescription bottles are gone. She'll deny everything. It'll be my word against hers, and she's already convinced half the family I'm just protecting my unstable daughter. I stood pacing to the window. Charlotte had revealed her hand, but she'd also shown her weakness. She was getting sloppy, making threats instead of maintaining her facade. Mom, did Charlotte mention any specific plans, timelines? She said the wedding has to happen on schedule. Something about investor deadlines and property transfer windows. She mentioned that once they're married, she'll have automatic rights to Marcus's assets, including any family business interests. Then she laughed and said, "Too bad Jaime wasted $65,000 on a wedding she won't even attend." She doesn't know you're here. No, I parked blocks away, took side streets. I'm not totally naive, just willfully blind. Was willfully blind. She pulled out her phone. I've been recording our conversations for the last week. After what Helen's friend from Boston told us I wanted insurance, I have her admitting to the drugging, discussing her sister, even joking about her previous victims. My mother, the woman I'd written off as shallow and image-obsessed, had been playing her own game. I felt a flicker of the strategic thinking that must have attracted my father initially, before decades of keeping up appearances had buried it. Jaime, I know I have no right to ask for your help. I've been a terrible mother. I chose comfort over courage appearances, over authenticity. I let Charlotte poison our family because I was blinded by what she represented. But please help me save your brother. Of course I'll help. He's family. After everything, after what I've done to you. I turned from the window to face her. Mom, I've spent 16 years building an empire. Every acquisition, every expansion, every success was partly to prove I was worth something. Worth seeing, worth loving, worth including. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about proving anything to you and became about protecting what matters. Family matters even when they hurt us, especially then. She stood crossing to join me at the window. Together, we looked out at the city lights, each one representing dreams and ambitions, and families trying to survive. What do we do? She asked. First, we get Marcus somewhere safe. Then we bring Charlotte's house of cards down. But Mom, it's going to get ugly. She's cornered, desperate, and dangerous. Are you prepared for that? I wasn't prepared to be a good mother, she said quietly. But maybe I can learn to be a fierce one. That girl threatened my son. She wants to destroy my daughter. I may be late to the battle, but I'm here now. I smiled, seeing a glimpse of the woman who'd raised 2 children while my father built his business, who'd survived her own mother's criticism and her community's judgment. Then let's begin. Charlotte thinks she's won because she divided our family. She's about to learn what happens when Thompson women stop fighting each other and start fighting together. Catherine squeezed my hand, the first genuine affection she'd shown me in years. Jaime, I'm proud of you. Not for the business empire or the success, for staying kind when I gave you every reason to become cruel. That's the real achievement. That's what's going to save us. As we began planning our counterattack, I felt something shift in the universe. The mother who'd never seen me was finally looking, and what she saw wasn't the disappointment she'd expected, but the protector she needed. Charlotte Pemberton had performed many cruelties, but forcing Catherine Thompson to finally see her daughter might have been her fatal mistake. My legal team assembled in the Meridian conference room at 6 a.m. sharp. James Morrison, my chief counsel, had called in specialists from 3 firms: criminal lawyers, family law experts, asset protection specialists, and a prosecutor who'd retired into private practice after putting away some of the state's most sophisticated fraud rings. Coffee's on the sideboard, I announced. We have a lot to cover and not much time. The presentation screens showed everything we'd gathered: Charlotte's marriage certificate to Christopher Walsh, her pattern of targeting family businesses, the forged emails, the drugging admission Catherine had recorded. But as damning as it looked, James's expression remained grim. It's not enough, he said bluntly. The bigamy charge would stick, but she'd claim ignorance, maybe get probation. The drugging is, he said, she said, without the physical evidence. The business fraud is sophisticated enough that prosecution would take years. So we need more. We need her to commit a clear documented crime in real time, something unambiguous with witnesses and evidence. Sarah Chen, the former prosecutor, leaned forward. There's another issue: your brother's safety. If Charlotte feels threatened based on her pattern, she escalates. I finished. Boston, her ex-husband, had a mysterious allergic reaction right before their divorce hearing. Dallas, the brother who opposed her, fell down a flight of stairs. Exactly. We need to extract Marcus without triggering her survival instincts. My phone buzzed. Robert's text was urgent. Tom Bradley just arrived from Boston. Says it's critical he speaks with you immediately. Send him up, I replied. Tom Bradley entered, looking haggard but determined. The last time I'd seen Charlotte's Boston victim, he'd been broken, his family's century-old restaurant group dissolved and sold. Now he carried himself with purpose. I've been working with the other victims, he said without preamble. We found something. Charlotte and Victoria have a mentor, a woman named Eleanor Vance, who taught them this game. Where is she? Federal prison. She got sloppy 5 years ago, tried to run the same con on a federal judge's family. But here's the thing. She's willing to testify about Charlotte and Victoria's operations in exchange for a sentence reduction. Sarah's eyes lit up. A co-conspirator's testimony changes everything. If we can establish a pattern of criminal enterprise. Rico, James breathed. We could prosecute this as organized crime. There's more, Tom continued. I've been in touch with Christopher Walsh, Charlotte's legal husband. He's been tracking her for years, building his own case. He has documents, recordings, evidence of hidden accounts. He's willing to cooperate fully. Why didn't he come forward before? Fear. Charlotte told him if he ever surfaced, she'd claim he was abusive file charges that would destroy his career as a pediatric surgeon. But when he heard about your brother, about the drugging, he has a younger brother with special needs. He couldn't stand by and watch it happen to another family. The room erupted in strategic planning. Sarah began drafting subpoenas while James called contacts at the FBI. Within hours, we'd assembled a strike team that would make Charlotte's previous legal troubles look like parking tickets. But I had a more immediate concern. We need to get Marcus away from her, tonight. How? Tom asked. She watches him constantly, has him tracked through his phone, his car's GPS. I thought about my brother, medicated and manipulated, probably sitting in their apartment right now believing his sister was the enemy. Then inspiration struck. We used the wedding. Charlotte's obsessed with it happening on schedule. What if there was a venue emergency requiring the groom's immediate attention? I called Eleanor Hastings. I need you to create a crisis at Evergreen Estates, something that requires Marcus to come immediately alone. What kind of crisis? Water main break in the main pavilion. Flooding that threatens the entire venue. Make it sound catastrophic but fixable if addressed immediately. Consider it done. When? 2 hours. And Eleanor. Make sure your security team knows Mr. Bradley and Mr. Walsh by sight. They'll be arriving separately. The next call was harder. Catherine answered on the first ring. It's happening, I told her. Can you keep Charlotte occupied this evening? She's invited me to dinner, a peace offering, she claims. Wants to discuss my concerns in a civilized manner. Don't go alone. Take Helen with you and Mom. Whatever she offers you to drink, don't. I'm not stupid, Jaime, just slow to wake up. As the legal team dispersed to execute their portions of the plan, I found myself alone with Tom Bradley. Can I ask you something? He said. Why go to all this trouble? You could have just canceled their wedding contracts, walked away clean. Why risk exposing yourself to Charlotte's retaliation? I thought about it gazing out at my city. Because walking away clean isn't really clean, is it? It leaves her free to destroy another family. And because he's your brother. Because he's my brother. Even when he doesn't deserve it. Even when he participated in hurting me. That's what real family does. We save each other from our worst mistakes. Tom nodded slowly. I wish I'd had a sister like you. Maybe things would have ended differently for us. They still can. That's what the Meridian Foundation is for, to make sure no family faces these predators alone again. My phone rang. Eleanor's voice was breathless with manufactured panic. It's done. I've called Marcus, directly told him Charlotte can't know because she'd cancel the wedding if she knew about venue problems. He bought it completely. He's on his way. Excellent. Is medical standing by? Dr. Patterson is here with a full detox protocol. The moment Marcus arrives, we begin withdrawal management. And our other guests? Mr. Walsh and Mr. Bradley are already in position. The FBI team just pulled into our service entrance. Oh, and Miss Thompson Charlotte's sister, Victoria, just landed at the airport. Our contact says she's heading directly to Charlotte's apartment. The pieces were moving into position. Charlotte thought she was days away from her biggest score, but she'd made the classic predator's mistake. She'd become overconfident, too comfortable in her pattern to see the trap closing around her. James. I called to my legal counsel. File the emergency injunctions now. Freeze every account challenge every contract put holds on every property transfer she's attempted to initiate. With pleasure. Oh, and Jaime, Judge Harrison wants you to know he's personally overseeing this case. Seems his niece was one of Victoria's victims in Miami. He's very interested in seeing justice done. As afternoon faded to evening, I stood in my office watching the city prepare for night. Somewhere out there, Charlotte was sitting down to dinner with my mother, confident in her control. Marcus was arriving at Evergreen Estates, about to be freed from his chemical prison. And a network of victims' law enforcement and legal professionals were closing in on the sisters who'd turned family destruction into a business model. The legal counterstrike was in motion. Charlotte had used the law as a weapon hiding behind contracts and technicalities. But she'd forgotten that justice, real justice, has a way of finding those who mock it. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from Christopher Walsh. Thought you should know. Charlotte's been married 4 times, not just to me. We're all here. We're all ready to testify. End this. 4 marriages. 4 families destroyed. But it would end here in my city with my family. Charlotte Pemberton had chosen the wrong sister to underestimate. Tomorrow she'd wake up to find her carefully constructed world in ruins. Tonight I'd save my brother and begin rebuilding what she'd tried to destroy. The law was on our side now. More importantly, so was the truth. Marcus arrived at Evergreen Estates at 7:23 p.m., stumbling slightly as he exited his BMW. Through the security monitors, I watched him approach the main entrance where Dr. Patterson waited disguised as a maintenance supervisor. "Mr. Thompson? Thank goodness you're here. The situation is worse than we thought." "Where's the flooding?" Marcus asked, his words slightly slurred. The combination of Xanax and Ambien Charlotte had been feeding him was clearly taking its toll. "This way, sir. We need to check your shoes' first safety protocol for the wet areas." It was a smooth deception. Dr. Patterson led Marcus to a private suite we'd converted into a medical facility complete with monitoring equipment and a full nursing staff. The moment Marcus sat down claiming he felt dizzy, the medical team moved in. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Dr. Patterson. Your sister asked me to examine you. We have reason to believe you've been exposed to dangerous levels of prescription medications without your knowledge." "Well, that's ridiculous. Charlotte takes care of me. She makes sure I take my vitamins." "Those aren't vitamins, son. We need to run some tests." I watched from the adjoining room as Marcus's confusion gave way to anger, then fear, as the blood tests confirmed what we suspected. Therapeutic levels of multiple sedatives administered consistently over months. "This can't be right," he kept repeating. "Charlotte loves me. We're getting married in 2 weeks." That's when Christopher Walsh entered the room. Marcus looked up, confused. "Who are you?" "Christopher Walsh, Charlotte's husband." The silence stretched until Marcus laughed a broken sound. "That's impossible. Charlotte's never been married." Christopher placed a folder on the table. Marriage certificate, wedding photos, joint tax returns. "We married 6 years ago in Miami. She disappeared 3 years ago with $2 million from my family's medical practice. I've been tracking her ever since." Marcus stared at the photos. Charlotte in a white dress smiling beside Christopher, looking exactly as she did with him. "No," Marcus whispered. "No, she chose me. She said I was different, special." "She said that to me, too," Tom Bradley said, entering from the other door. "Boston 4 years ago. Convinced me to dissolve my family's restaurant group, sell everything to her sister's company for pennies on the dollar. My brother hasn't spoken to me since." "And me," said another voice, James Ashford from Dallas. "She destroyed my family's entertainment complex, turned my parents against each other. My father died thinking I'd betrayed him." Marcus looked around the room at Charlotte's previous victims, his face crumbling as reality crashed through his medicated fog. "But she's pregnant," he said desperately. "She's carrying my child." Christopher's face softened with pity. "Did she show you a pregnancy test? An ultrasound?" She said it was too early for ultrasounds. Said she wanted to wait until after the wedding to make it official." "Marcus." I stepped into the room, unable to watch from the sidelines any longer. "There is no pregnancy. It's part of her pattern. She claims pregnancy to lock in the marriage, then has a convenient miscarriage after the assets are transferred." My brother looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw clarity fighting through the chemical haze. "Jaime, what are you doing here? Charlotte said you were having a breakdown, that you were jealous." "I own this venue, Marcus. I own all the venues Charlotte chose for your wedding. That's what she's really after, not you. Never you." The medical readout started beeping. Dr. Patterson checked the monitors, frowning. "His blood pressure's spiking. We need to stabilize him before we continue." But Marcus was already standing, swaying slightly. "I need to see her. I need to hear her say it." "That's not safe," Christopher warned. "When Charlotte's cornered, she gets dangerous. In Miami, when I confronted her about the missing money, she tried to poison me, made it look like an allergic reaction." "I don't care," Marcus shouted, then grabbed his head as the room spun. "Oh God, what has she done to me?" "She's been controlling you. Dr. Patterson said gently. The drugs make you compliant, susceptible to suggestion. You've essentially been in a walking blackout for months. Your decisions, your emotions, even your memories might not be entirely real. Marcus collapsed back into the chair, sobbing. The family meetings where we excluded Jaime, the things I said to her. Charlotte would give me talking points, and they just felt right at the time. Natural. Like my own thoughts. I knelt beside my brother, taking his hands. They were shaking, whether from withdrawal or emotion, I couldn't tell. Marcus, look at me. This isn't your fault. She's a professional predator. She's done this to multiple families. But I chose her over you, my own sister. I called you delusional, unstable. You were drugged, manipulated. That wasn't you talking. How can you forgive me? Because you're my brother. Because that's what family does. His phone rang, Charlotte's ringtone filling the room. We all froze. Answer it, I said. Act normal. We need more time to build the legal case. Marcus answered, his voice shaky. Hey, babe. Charlotte's voice filled the speaker, cold and sharp. Where are you? You were supposed to be home an hour ago. I'm at the venue. There was a flooding issue. I don't care if the place burns down. Get home. Now. Your mother's here being difficult, and I need you to handle her. My mother's there. With that senile great aunt. They're asking inconvenient questions. I need you here to remind them about your sister's mental state. Marcus, are you listening? I'll be right there. Good boy. Oh, and Marcus Victoria's in town. We're moving the timeline up. I need you to sign some papers tonight. Power of attorney stuff, just in case your sister tries to interfere with our wedding. She hung up. Marcus looked around the room at the men she'd destroyed at the medical equipment, keeping him stable at me. She wants me to sign power of attorney. If you do that, she can strip every asset you have, including your share of the family hardware store, Christopher explained. That's her final play. Once she has that, you become expendable. Expendable, Marcus repeated. Like you all were. Tom Bradley pulled out his phone, showing a news article. My brother, the one who fought her hardest, he fell down a flight of stairs 2 days before our court hearing. Traumatic brain injury. He's still learning to walk again. My cousin, who discovered the financial discrepancies, James Ashford added. Mysterious car accident. The brake lines just happened to fail. The partner who refused to sell another victim continued. Sudden onset of a rare illness. Doctors never could explain it. Marcus's face had gone gray. She's with my mother right now, and Aunt Helen. I was already moving, calling our security team. We have cars stationed outside Charlotte's apartment. Mom knows to be careful, but Charlotte's escalating, Dr. Patterson interrupted. The pattern's clear. When her plans are threatened, she removes obstacles. Your mother and aunt just became obstacles. Marcus stood again, more steadily this time. I'm going. Not alone, I said. She'll hurt them if she sees you, Jaime. You're the biggest threat. Then we do this smart, Christopher said. I'll go with Marcus. She doesn't know I'm in town. Tom and James, you take the back entrance. Jaime, you coordinate with law enforcement. I've been recording everything, Marcus said, suddenly pulling out his phone. For the last week, something felt off, so I started recording our conversations. I thought I was being paranoid, but he played a recent recording. Charlotte's voice sweet and poisonous. Once we're married and your sister's committed, we can liquidate everything. The venues, the hardware store, even that pathetic house your parents live in. Victoria has buyers lined up. We'll be rich, baby. Rich enough to leave all these losers behind. That's conspiracy to commit fraud, Sarah Chen said, entering with a team of FBI agents. Mr. Thompson, we need that phone as evidence, and we need you to wear a wire. As they fitted Marcus with recording equipment, I saw my brother transforming. The fog was lifting, replaced by a fury I recognized from our childhood when neighborhood bullies had gone too far. She made me betray my sister, he said quietly. She made me hurt the one person who's always protected me. Charlotte thinks she knows what Thompson men do when cornered. She's about to find out. Dr. Patterson administered medications to combat the withdrawal symptoms and sharpen Marcus's focus. This will help temporarily, but you need proper detox after tonight. After tonight, Marcus agreed. After my family is safe. As the teams prepared to converge on Charlotte's apartment, I pulled my brother aside. Marcus, be careful. Charlotte's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things, he finished. I know. But Jaime, I'm not the scared, vain man she manipulated anymore. I'm your brother, and it's time I started acting like it. He hugged me then, the first real embrace we'd shared in years. When he pulled back, his eyes were clear and determined. Let's end this, he said. Let's save our family. As the convoy of cars left Evergreen Estates, I remained behind in the command center we'd established, coordinating with law enforcement and watching the feeds from multiple surveillance points. Charlotte Pemberton had pushed my brother to his breaking point, but she'd miscalculated. She'd assumed breaking him would make him weak. Instead, she'd created an ally who knew her secrets and had nothing left to lose. The brother who'd betrayed me was gone, replaced by the one I'd grown up with, the one who protected what mattered. Charlotte was about to learn that Thompson men, when finally awakened to the truth, were just as dangerous as Thompson women. The only difference, we'd been protecting each other our whole lives. She'd merely been practicing destruction. The Meridian Foundation Launch Gala was the social event of the season. 500 of the city's most influential residents gathered in the grand ballroom of the Mayfair Hotel, unaware they were about to witness Charlotte Pemberton's final performance. I stood at the entrance greeting guests, elegant in a midnight blue gown that had cost more than my first food truck. The irony wasn't lost on me. The girl who'd once washed dishes now hosting senators and celebrities in her own hotel. Jaime, darling. David Chen approached with his wife. Spectacular turnout, though I heard there might be some unexpected drama tonight. All good causes deserve attention, I replied diplomatically. He leaned closer. Half the city knows something's brewing. Charlotte's been calling everyone trying to shore up support. She's even reached out to my acquisitions team again, offering your properties at 70 cents on the dollar if we move fast. How enterprising of her. Indeed. By the way, there's a gentleman from Boston who's been quite eager to speak with you. Said his name was Walsh. Christopher had arrived along with Tom Bradley and the other victims. They were seated at table 12, Charlotte's former conquests gathered like ghosts at the feast. The FBI agents were scattered throughout the room, posing as guests and staff. Everything was in position. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced from the podium, welcome to the inaugural gala for the Meridian Foundation. Tonight we celebrate not just charitable giving, but the protection of family legacies from those who would destroy them. The crowd applauded politely, still unaware of what was coming. I continued my speech about predatory business practices, about families torn apart by carefully orchestrated schemes. The mood in the room shifted as people began to recognize their own experiences in my words. Then, right on schedule, the ballroom doors burst open. Charlotte entered like an avenging angel dressed in white as if she were the bride at her own wedding. Behind her came Victoria Marcus and, shockingly, my parents. She'd brought the entire family as her shield. I'm so sorry to interrupt, Charlotte announced, her voice carrying across the ballroom, but I couldn't let this woman continue to spread lies about my family. She strode toward the podium and I stepped back, giving her the stage she clearly craved. The crowd murmured phones, appearing to record whatever drama was about to unfold. My name is Charlotte Pemberton, she continued, taking the microphone. And I'm here to expose Jaime Thompson for what she really is, a bitter, jealous woman who's trying to destroy my marriage to her brother because she can't stand seeing others happy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Charlotte had their attention now. She claims I'm some sort of predator targeting family businesses. The truth, I fell in love with Marcus Thompson and his sister, has been waging a campaign of harassment ever since. She's used her position to threaten vendors, spread rumors, even hire actors to pose as my ex-husbands. She gestured to table 12. Those men paid performers. This entire foundation. A sham designed to ruin my reputation because I dared to point out that Jaime was having delusions of grandeur, claiming to own businesses that don't exist. It was masterful, really. Charlotte had flipped the script, casting herself as the victim and me as the villain. Several society matrons were already whispering, choosing sides based on the performance alone. But tonight, Charlotte continued, I'm here to prove who's telling the truth. Jaime claims she owns this hotel, these venues, so let's settle it. Call the real owners. Let them tell everyone who's lying. She pulled out her phone with a theatrical flourish. I have the number for Meridian Hospitality Group's board of directors right here. Shall we call them? That won't be necessary, a voice called from the back. Helen Kravitz, the city's most powerful banker, stood up. I serve on that board, Ms. Pemberton, have for 5 years. Jaime Thompson is indeed the founder, CEO, and majority shareholder. I can provide documentation if needed. Charlotte's smile flickered but held. One board member who's clearly been deceived. Anyone else? I'm the company's primary legal counsel. James Morrison stood. Ms. Thompson built this empire from nothing. I've handled every acquisition personally. Her first investor, another voice called out, gave her seed money for the catering company 12 years ago. Best investment I ever made. One by one, people throughout the room stood identifying themselves as partners, investors, employees, and beneficiaries of my business empire. The city's power structure was essentially confirming what Charlotte had tried to deny. But she wasn't finished. Convenient that all these people suddenly remember working with someone who's kept such a low profile, almost like it was orchestrated. Tell me, how much did she pay you all to lie? Nobody's lying, Marcus said quietly, stepping away from Charlotte. Except you. The room went silent. Marcus, darling. Charlotte's voice hardened. You're confused. You haven't been well. Because you've been drugging me. His voice grew stronger. Xanax in my coffee, Ambien in my wine. For months you've kept me in a fog so I couldn't see what you really are. These are the delusions I've been talking about, Charlotte appealed to the crowd. He's clearly been influenced by his sister. By the truth, Marcus interrupted. He pulled out documents. This is your marriage certificate to Christopher Walsh. You're still married to him. Our wedding would have been bigamy. Christopher stood up from table 12. Hello, Charlotte. Missing something. He held up her wedding ring, the one she'd left behind in Miami. Charlotte's mask finally cracked. She looked around the room, calculating exits, measuring threats. This is entrapment, she snarled. This is justice, said another voice. FBI Special Agent Sarah Miller stepped forward, badge visible. Charlotte Pemberton, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, bigamy, theft by deception, and criminal administration of controlled substances. You can't prove anything, Charlotte shouted as agents moved toward her. Actually, I said, returning to the microphone, we can. Every conversation, every threat, every admission has been recorded, including the one where you told my mother you'd done this before, that you'd killed a man in Boston who got in your way. I played the recording, Catherine's phone having captured Charlotte's casual confession to murder. The room listened in horror as Charlotte laughed about making Tom Bradley's brother fall down the stairs, about considering the same fate for me. Victoria Lang, Agent Miller continued, you're also under arrest as a co-conspirator. Victoria tried to run, but agents were already positioned at every exit. The sisters who destroyed families for profit were caught in a web of their own making. As they were led away in handcuffs, Charlotte turned back one last time. You think you've won. You've lost your brother's love forever. He'll never forgive you for humiliating him like this. Marcus took the microphone from me. You're wrong, Charlotte. My sister saved my life. You tried to use me to destroy her, but all you did was remind me what real family looks like. Jaime could have exposed me, ruined me for participating in your scheme. Instead, she protected me even when I didn't deserve it. He turned to the crowd. I'm not proud of what I became under Charlotte's influence, but I'm grateful for a sister who loved me enough to fight for me when I couldn't fight for myself. The Meridian Foundation isn't just about protecting businesses. It's about protecting families from people like Charlotte who see love as a weakness to exploit. The room erupted in applause. Catherine and Richard made their way to the stage, our family united for the first time in years. "I owe you both an apology," Catherine said into the microphone. "My daughter built an empire while I was too blind to see it. She protected our family while I pushed her away. Charlotte Pemberton may be a criminal, but she taught me something valuable, that the real wealth isn't in status or connections, but in the family who stands by you when everything falls apart." As Charlotte and Victoria were driven away, their victims from other cities approached our family. Tom Bradley, Christopher Walsh, James Ashford, and others who'd lost everything to the predatory sisters. "Thank you," Tom said simply. "You did what none of us could. You stopped them." "We stopped them," I corrected. "All of us together. That's what the foundation is about, making sure no family faces these predators alone." The gala continued, but it had transformed from a simple charity launch into something more powerful, a community understanding that protecting each other was the greatest investment they could make. Later, as the evening wound down, Marcus found me on the hotel's balcony. "Jaime, I don't know how to make this right. The things I said, the way I treated you. You were drugged, Marcus, manipulated by a professional con artist. But even before the drugs, I was willing to exclude you. I was so desperate to be important to matter that I let her turn me against the one person who always had my back." "We all have our weaknesses," I said. "Yours was wanting to be seen as successful. Mine was hiding my success to avoid making others feel small. Charlotte exploited both. How do we move forward? The same way we always have, as family. Imperfect, complicated, sometimes hurtful, but ultimately committed to each other." He hugged me then, and in that embrace was every apology, every regret, and every promise to do better. The public showdown was over. Charlotte and Victoria would face justice for their crimes, their victims would find closure, and the Meridian Foundation would ensure no other families fell prey to similar schemes. But the real victory wasn't in the arrests or the public vindication. It was in my mother's newfound respect, my brother's clear eyes, and my father's quiet pride. It was in the family that had been torn apart and rebuilt stronger. Charlotte had promised I'd lose my brother's love forever. Instead, her schemes had returned it to me, refined by fire and tempered by truth. She'd been right about one thing. Thompson family bonds were weak, but she'd failed to understand that weakness could become strength when tested, that love could grow deeper for having survived betrayal. As we stood together on that balcony watching the city lights twinkle below, I knew we'd emerged from Charlotte's web not just intact, but transformed. The family that had once pushed me to the margins now stood united at the center, ready to face whatever came next, together. In the weeks following Charlotte's arrest, the Thompson family faced a reckoning that went deeper than legal proceedings or public scandal. The easy part was over. Now came the hard work of rebuilding relationships that had been fractured long before Charlotte ever appeared. I sat in my parents' living room, the same space where they'd uninvited me from Marcus's wedding. But everything felt different now. The pretense was gone, replaced by an awkward honesty we were all learning to navigate. "The hardware store is failing," Richard admitted, setting down his coffee with trembling hands. "Has been for years. I've been hiding it, taking out loans, juggling credit cards. Without your monthly anonymous deposits, we'd have lost it 18 months ago." "You knew about the deposits?" "Suspected. The amounts were too precise, always arriving just when we needed them most. Charlotte actually did us a favor there. Her investigation into our finances revealed the pattern." Catherine touched his shoulder gently. "We've been living a lie, Jaime, pretending we were comfortable that the business was thriving, that we didn't need help, all while you were quietly keeping us afloat." "I didn't do it for gratitude," I said. "I did it because you're family." "Family we failed to appreciate," Marcus interjected from the doorway. He'd been staying with our parents since his release from medical supervision, slowly detoxing from months of Charlotte's chemical control. I spent so much time resenting your success, I never stopped to think about how you used it. He sat beside me, still thin from his ordeal, but clear-eyed in a way he hadn't been in months. Do you know what Charlotte told me once? She said the fact that you lived modestly proved you were ashamed of your success, that you knew you didn't deserve it. I believed her because I wanted to. It was easier than admitting my little sister had outgrown me in every way that mattered. You were always enough, Marcus. Charlotte just made you believe otherwise. Did I, though? Was I ever enough? Or did I peak in high school and spend the rest of my life trying to recapture that glory? The room sat with his words heavy with truth. This was the conversation we'd avoided for years, the acknowledgement of dreams deferred and potential unrealized. The store, Richard said suddenly. I want you to have it, Jaime. You've been keeping it alive anyway. Dad, no. That store is your legacy. My legacy is 2 children who've proven Thompson values in different ways. Marcus, who, despite everything, found the courage to stand up to Charlotte when it mattered. And you, who built an empire while never forgetting where you came from. The store should go to someone who can make it thrive again. Then we do it together, I said. The Meridian Group can invest, modernize operations, expand the product line. But it stays Thompson Hardware, and you stay involved as long as you want. And me? Marcus asked quietly. What happens to the son who betrayed his sister for a con artist's approval? You get therapy, I said bluntly. Real help processing what happened, and then you figure out who Marcus Thompson is when he's not trying to live up to anyone's expectations. I've been thinking about teaching, he admitted. Coach Peterson at the high school says they need an assistant coach for the football team. It's not glamorous, but maybe that's what I need, to stop chasing glamour and start building something real. Catherine had been quiet through this exchange, but now she spoke up. I owe you more than an apology, Jaime. I owe you an explanation. When you started succeeding, really succeeding, it held up a mirror to my own choices. I gave up my career for marriage, convinced myself that was noble. But watching you build your empire while I played housewife to a struggling business, I resented you for showing me what I could have been. It's not too late, I said. You still have your real estate license. The Meridian Group needs someone to scout properties for expansion, someone with an eye for potential and deep community connections. You'd trust me with that after everything. We're rebuilding, Mom. All of us. That means taking chances on each other. My phone buzzed with a message from our legal team. Charlotte and Victoria had been denied bail deemed flight risks after investigators discovered multiple fake passports. Their trials would begin in 3 months with enough evidence to ensure neither would prey on families again. There's something else, I said, pulling out a folder. Charlotte's victims from other cities. They're struggling to rebuild their businesses, their families. I want to help them, but not through charity. I want to create a venture fund, invest in their recovery. Let them rebuild with dignity. Using Thompson money to fix what the Pembertons broke, Richard mused. There's poetry in that. Not just Thompson money. The FBI's asset forfeiture from Charlotte and Victoria's accounts will seed the fund. They spent years destroying families for profit. Now their ill-gotten gains will rebuild them. Marcus looked at the papers, his business mind engaging for the first time since his fog lifted. You'll need someone to manage it, someone who understands what these families went through, how predators like Charlotte operate. Are you volunteering? Maybe, if you'll have me. I know what it's like to be manipulated, to lose yourself to someone else's agenda. Maybe I can help others find their way back. We spent the rest of the afternoon planning not just the business aspects, but the personal rebuilding our family needed. Therapy sessions, family dinners without pretense, honest conversations about our failures and fears. As evening approached, Grace arrived with Michael and Aunt Helen, the family members who'd stood by me when it mattered. So, Helen said, settling into her favorite chair, are we done pretending Jaime is anything other than the family's greatest success story? "We're done pretending, period," Catherine said. "About success, about failure, about everything we've been too proud to admit." "Good." Helen nodded. "Because I have news. I've been diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's." The room went silent, this new blow landing on already bruised hearts. "The doctors say I have time, maybe years before it gets bad, but I want to make arrangements now while I can. Jaime, I want you to have my share of the hardware store. And Marcus, I want you to take over my position on the community board. You need to start building something positive in this town." "Helen," I started, but she waved me off. "No protests. You've spent years being the invisible guardian angel. Time to be visible. Own your success, child. Stop apologizing for outgrowing us." "I never outgrew you. I just grew differently." "Beautifully said. Now who's going to pour an old woman some wine and tell me exactly how you caught that horrible Charlotte woman? I want all the delicious details." As we settled in for an evening of storytelling, I realized this was the first honest family gathering we'd had in years. No pretense, no hidden resentments, no careful distance. Just a family that had been tested by fire and chosen to emerge united rather than destroyed. Charlotte had promised to tear us apart. Instead, she'd forced us to confront truths we'd been avoiding for decades. The family reckoning she'd triggered wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary. "You know what's funny?" Marcus said later as we cleaned up dishes together like we had as children. "Charlotte picked our family because she thought our dysfunction made us easy targets. But our dysfunction was just scar tissue over deeper bonds. When she tried to cut us apart, she just reminded us what we were protecting." Still, we were lucky. If you hadn't kept those recordings, if Mom hadn't been suspicious, if you hadn't built an empire that could withstand her attacks, Marcus countered. "Jaime, you saved us. Not just from Charlotte, but from ourselves, from the small, petty people we were becoming." We saved each other. That's what family does. As I drove home that night, I thought about the long road ahead. Charlotte's trial, the foundation's work, the delicate process of rebuilding trust. It wouldn't be easy. Real healing never was. But for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying the weight alone. My family knew who I was, what I'd built, and why I'd hidden it. More importantly, they were choosing to stand with me, not in spite of my success, but because of what it revealed about my character. Charlotte had been right about one thing. The Thompson family had been broken, but she'd underestimated our capacity to heal, to grow, to choose each other when it mattered most. We were imperfect, scarred, still learning how to be honest, but we were together, and that made all the difference. The family reckoning was over. The family rebuilding had begun. The article appeared simultaneously across every major news outlet in the country. The sisters who destroyed families for profit. An investigation into the Pemberton Kahn dynasty. I sat in my office reading the exposé I'd helped orchestrate, feeling a cold satisfaction as Charlotte and Victoria's entire criminal history was laid bare for public consumption. But this wasn't simple vengeance. This was strategic justice. The response has been overwhelming. Sarah Chen, the former prosecutor now heading our legal team, reported. 17 more victims have come forward since the article broke. The FBI is opening investigations in 6 states. And the trials. Charlotte's attempting an insanity defense. Claims she's suffering from a delusional disorder that made her believe she was entitled to these families' assets. Her lawyers arguing that her pattern of behavior indicates mental illness, not criminal intent. Of course she is. I turned to the window, watching the city below. What about Victoria? She's turning state's evidence, offering to testify against Charlotte in exchange for a reduced sentence. Claims Charlotte was the mastermind, and she was coerced into participating. The sisters who'd worked in perfect harmony to destroy families were now destroying each other. There was poetry in that betrayal. My phone rang. Tom Bradley from Boston. "Jaime, I wanted you to know. My brother woke up today. Full consciousness for the first time since his fall. The doctors say it's miraculous, but he might recover more function than they originally thought. That's wonderful news, Tom. He wants to testify. He remembers Charlotte visiting him the day before the accident, remembers her saying something about stairs being dangerous for people who don't watch their step. Another piece of evidence in an already overwhelming case. Charlotte had been meticulous in her financial crimes but sloppy with her violence. Arrogance had made her careless. There's more, Tom continued. The other families and I have been talking. We want to do something public, something that shows these weren't isolated incidents, but a pattern of predation. Would the Meridian Foundation host a summit? What kind of summit? Survivors of family business fraud. Not just Charlotte's victims, but others who've faced similar schemes. Share our stories, create a network of support, maybe prevent future families from falling prey to these tactics. Yes, I said immediately. We'll host it next month. Full media coverage expert panels, the works. Let's drag these predators into the light. After ending the call, I found Marcus in the Foundation's offices, deep in conversation with Christopher Walsh. They'd formed an unlikely friendship bonded by their shared experience of Charlotte's manipulation. Christopher's had an idea, Marcus said as I joined them. Tell her. I've been tracking Charlotte and Victoria's assets, Christopher explained. Not just the obvious ones, but the hidden accounts, the shell companies, the properties held under aliases. I found something interesting. He spread documents across the table. They own a compound in the Caymans, bought it with money from their first scheme 8 years ago. It's where they plan to retire after one last big score. That score was supposed to be your family. The FBI knows about it. They do now. But here's the thing. The property's held by a trust that technically belongs to their victims. They forged signatures to create it use stolen funds to purchase it. Legally, it should be returned to the families they defrauded. You want to turn their retirement paradise into a recovery center. Whoa, I realized. A retreat for families rebuilding after fraud. Somewhere they can heal, get counseling, learn to trust again. Turn their safe haven into a sanctuary for their victims. I love it. Marcus, can you work with legal to make it happen? Already on it. My brother's energy was infectious. He'd thrown himself into the Foundation's work with the same intensity he'd once reserved for Charlotte's approval. We've also been contacted by a documentary filmmaker. She wants to follow several families through their recovery process, show the long-term impact of financial predation. Including ours? That's your call. I'm willing to participate if you are. Show people that even families who seem successful can be vulnerable to the right manipulator. I considered it. Opening our story to public scrutiny meant reliving painful moments exposing vulnerabilities we'd hidden for years. But if it helped one family recognize the warning signs, let's do it, full transparency. Robert knocked and entered. Boss, you need to see this. Charlotte's lawyer just filed a motion claiming prosecutorial misconduct. She's alleging that you orchestrated her arrest as a personal vendetta, that the Meridian Foundation is a front for harassment. Let her file motions. We have evidence, witnesses, and a clear pattern of criminal behavior. She can't lawyer her way out of this. Actually, Sarah Chen interjected, entering with a smile, she just made a critical error. By claiming the Foundation is harassment, she's opened the door for us to present every case we've documented, every family she's destroyed, every business she's pillaged. She's basically given us permission to lay out her entire criminal history in court. Pride goeth before the fall, Marcus murmured. She still can't admit she's been caught, still thinks she can manipulate her way to freedom. That evening, we held a press conference announcing the Survivor Summit. I stood at the podium flanked by Charlotte's victims from multiple cities, a united front against predatory fraud. The Pemberton sisters didn't just steal money, I said to the assembled media. They stole trust, love, and family bonds. They turned our deepest connections into weapons against us. But today we stand together to say no more. No more suffering in silence. No more shame for being victimized by professional criminals. Tom Bradley spoke next, his voice strong, despite his brother's ongoing recovery. Charlotte Pemberton told me I was weak for trusting my family. She was wrong. Trust isn't weakness. It's the foundation of every meaningful relationship. The weakness lies in those who exploit trust for profit. Christopher Walsh followed. These predators count on our silence, our embarrassment at being fooled. But there's no shame in loving someone who doesn't deserve it. The shame belongs solely to those who weaponize love. One by one, Charlotte's victims told their stories. The Dallas family whose parents died estranged, the Miami business that 3 generations had built and Charlotte had destroyed, the Boston brothers who'd only recently begun speaking again. But we didn't stop at Charlotte's victims. Other families came forward sharing their experiences with different predators who used similar tactics. The summit announcement had opened floodgates of stored pain and suppressed truth. The Meridian Foundation will create a database, I announced, a registry of known tactics, warning signs, and confirmed predators. We'll offer free consultations to families concerned about new relationships that seem too focused on business assets. We'll provide legal support for those already victimized. And yes, we'll turn the Pemberton compound in the Caymans into a healing center for families recovering from betrayal. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Donations poured in from families who'd survived similar schemes, from business leaders who recognized the threat to their own legacies, from ordinary people moved by the stories of betrayal and resilience. But the sweetest revenge came in a form I hadn't expected. Eleanor Vance Charlotte and Victoria's mentor reached out from federal prison. She wanted to testify, but more than that, she wanted to make amends. I taught them everything, she said over a monitored phone call. Picked them because they were beautiful, intelligent, and completely without conscience. I'm dying. Cancer stage 4. I want to spend my last months undoing some of the damage I caused. I have records, training materials, names of others I taught. I'll give you everything if you'll let me help destroy what I created. Why should we trust you? Because I'm already dead. The cancer's in my bones, my liver, everywhere. I've got maybe 6 months. Let me use them to burn down the empire of manipulation I built. It's the closest thing to redemption someone like me can achieve. I agreed. Eleanor's testimony and evidence would ensure Charlotte and Victoria never manipulated another soul. But more importantly, it would expose an entire network of family predators operating across the country. The day before Charlotte's trial began, I visited her in prison. She sat across from me in orange jumpsuit, her perfect facade finally cracked beyond repair. "Come to gloat?" she asked, her voice bitter. "No. I came to tell you that your victims are thriving. Tom's brother is learning to walk again. Christopher's opening a new medical practice. The families you destroyed are rebuilding stronger than before. You failed, Charlotte. Not just in your scheme against us, but in your fundamental understanding of family bonds. Spare me the philosophy lesson. You got lucky." "No, I got loved. By parents who eventually chose truth over comfort. By a brother who found courage when it mattered. By extended family who rallied when threatened. That's what you never understood. Real families bend but don't break. You tried to shatter us, but you just revealed our strength." "I'll get out. Victoria's testimony won't be enough. I'll claim coercion, manipulation, mental illness. I'll walk free and disappear, start again somewhere else. With what resources your accounts are frozen, your assets seized. Your network's been exposed, your methods documented. Even if you somehow escaped conviction, where would you go? Who would trust Charlotte Pemberton now?" She leaned back, the reality finally sinking in. "You've destroyed everything." "No, you destroyed everything, including yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it happening." As I left the prison, I felt the cold satisfaction warm into something healthier. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about prevention, protection, and healing. Charlotte and Victoria would face justice. But more importantly, future predators would think twice before targeting family businesses. The revenge served cold had become a foundation, served strong, built on the ruins of the Pemberton sisters' cruel empire. They'd sought to profit from family destruction. Instead, they'd sparked a movement of family protection that would outlast their prison sentences and outlive their legacy. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something beautiful from the wreckage they created, something that ensures no one else suffers as you did. Charlotte had taught us all valuable lessons about vulnerability and trust. Now we were teaching others how to protect both without losing either. The summit was scheduled for next month. The documentary would begin filming next week. The Cayman compound sale would close by year's end. Piece by piece, we were transforming Charlotte's weapons into tools for healing. She'd served her revenge hot, passionate, and cruel. We served ours cold, calculated, and constructive. In the end, ours would last longer and matter more. Charlotte Pemberton would be remembered not for the families she destroyed, but for the movement she inadvertently created, one that would protect families for generations to come. 6 months after Charlotte's conviction spring had come early to the city, I stood in the renovated Thompson Hardware watching Marcus teach a young employee how to properly mix paint. The store that had struggled for years was now thriving, modernized, but still maintaining its neighborhood charm. "Looking good," Catherine said, joining me by the new coffee bar we'd installed. My mother had taken to her role as property scout with unexpected enthusiasm, identifying 3 potential locations for Meridian expansion in the last month alone. "Marcus seems happy," I observed. "He is. Teaching suits him. The high school called yesterday. They want him to take over as head coach next year, and his therapy is going well. Dr. Patterson says he's made remarkable progress processing everything." We watched in comfortable silence as customers streamed in and out. The store had become more than just hardware. It was a community hub where neighbors gathered, problems were solved, and connections were made. "I have news," Catherine said eventually. "The documentary aired last night. The filmmaker called. It's already been picked up for international distribution. Our story, all the families' stories, they're going to help people worldwide recognize these predators." "Have you watched it?" "With your father. We cried through most of it. Seeing everything laid out, the pain we caused you, the way you protected us anyway." "Jaime, I don't know if I've said this enough, but I'm proud of you. Not for the business empire, but for staying kind when we gave you every reason not to." Before I could respond, the door chimed. Christopher Walsh entered with a woman I recognized from photos. His sister Diana, also a doctor. "Jaime, perfect timing. Diana just accepted the position at the medical center. She'll be running the new trauma unit." "Welcome to the city," I said, shaking her hand. "Christopher's told me wonderful things about your work. He's told me amazing things about yours. The work the foundation is doing, it's revolutionary. I'd love to get involved, especially with the psychological support aspects." As we discussed possibilities, I noticed Marcus heading our way with someone else, Sarah Chen from the high school, the English teacher who'd been helping with his coaching certification. "Jaime, Mom, you remember Sarah?" "Of course. How's the team looking for next season?" "Promising." Sarah smiled, and I caught the way she looked at Marcus. "Your brother's made a real difference. The boys respect him, trust him. He's teaching them about more than football." "Just trying to help them avoid my mistakes," Marcus said modestly. "Learn early that real strength isn't about dominating others or seeking approval. It's about knowing who you are and protecting what matters." The door chimed again. This time it was Grace, practically glowing. I passed the boards. "I'm officially Dr. Grace Thompson." The store erupted in congratulations. Richard emerged from the back office to hug his niece, tears in his eyes. The family that had once been fragmented by secrets and resentment now celebrated openly, genuinely. "We need champagne," Catherine declared. "Jaime, that wine shop you acquired last month delivers right." As she made the call, I stepped outside for air. The street that had seemed so ordinary growing up now housed one of my hotels, 2 of my restaurants, and the flagship store of what would become a Thompson Hardware chain. but more than business success, it represented transformation. Penny for your thoughts. I turned to find David Kim, the entrepreneur I'd met at last year's gala. We'd been dating for 3 months, taking things slow building on friendship first. Just thinking about how much can change in a year. Good changes, I hope. The best kind, painful but necessary, like surgery that saves your life. He took my hand, a gesture that still felt new and wonderful. Speaking of changes, I have a proposal. Not that kind, he added quickly, seeing my expression. A business proposal. My tech company's developing an app to help small businesses identify potential fraud. I'd like the Meridian Foundation as a partner. I'll have Marcus review it. He's become our resident expert on predatory tactics. From victim to protector, that's quite a transformation. We're all transformed. Charlotte intended to destroy us, but she just revealed who we really were underneath the dysfunction. We stood together watching the neighborhood bustle with life. The old barber shop where Mr. Peterson still gave $5 haircuts. The bakery that had made my birthday cakes for 30 years. The families who'd known me since childhood now proud of their local success story instead of resentful. The prosecutor called today, David said. Victoria was sentenced, 15 years possibility of parole in 10 if she cooperates with ongoing investigations. And Charlotte, life without parole. The murder charge from Boston sealed it. Eleanor Vance's testimony was devastating. I felt no satisfaction in the severity of her sentence, just relief that she couldn't hurt anyone else. The real victory wasn't in her punishment, but in what we'd built from the wreckage she'd created. There's something else, David said, pulling out an envelope. This came to my office addressed to you. No return address, but the postmark is from the federal prison where Eleanor Vance is serving. Inside was a handwritten letter and a flash drive. Dear Ms. Thompson. The letter read, I'm dying faster than expected. Weeks, not months. Enclosed is everything. Every technique I taught, every predator I trained, every family they targeted. 23 years of destruction documented. Use it to save others. Consider it my confession and my only possible atonement. Eleanor Vance. This could help hundreds of families, I breathed. Thousands, David corrected. With the right systems in place, this information could prevent countless schemes. We returned to the store to find an impromptu celebration in full swing. The champagne had arrived, and neighbors had gathered to toast Grace's success. Marcus was deep in conversation with potential investors for the hardware chain expansion. Catherine was showing property photos to interested entrepreneurs. Richard held court at the coffee bar, sharing stories of the store's history with newcomers who'd never heard them. Hey, everyone, Grace called out, raising her glass. A year ago, Charlotte Pemberton tried to destroy this family. She thought our bonds were weak, our loyalty conditional, our love transactional. She was wrong about everything except one thing. We were broken. But you know what? Broken things can be rebuilt stronger. Scars show where we've healed. And this family, we're titanium now. To titanium families, someone shouted and we all drank. As the party continued, I found myself in the back office where I'd once done homework while Dad tallied receipts. The same desk, the same lamp, but everything else transformed. Marcus found me there, hiding from your own party. Just thinking, a year ago you were about to marry Charlotte. I was alone hiding my success, convinced the family would never accept me. Now I'm free, you're visible, and the family's closer than ever. Funny how the worst thing that happened to us became the best thing. Charlotte wasn't the worst thing. Our silence was. Our pretenses, our assumptions, our inability to see each other clearly. She just forced us to drop the masks. Think you'll ever trust as easily again? No, but I don't think trust should be easy. It should be earned, tested, proven. What we have now, this harder-won trust, it's worth more because we know its value. Sarah appeared in the doorway. Marcus, the team's here. They wanted to congratulate Grace, too. As my brother left with the woman who saw him for who he was becoming rather than who he'd been, I smiled. Love had found him again quietly without fanfare or manipulation, the real kind that grew slowly from friendship and respect. My phone buzzed, a message from the Survivor Summit Planning Committee. Registration has exceeded capacity, requesting permission to expand to a week-long conference. Families need this. Please advise. Expand it, I typed back, as big as it needs to be. The new beginning wasn't just ours. It belonged to every family learning to rebuild after betrayal, every business owner recognizing predatory tactics, every sibling choosing reconciliation over resentment. Outside, the party had spilled onto the sidewalk. Music played from the hardware store's new sound system. Children ran between adults' legs while their parents discussed community improvements. Marcus was introducing his football team to Christopher's medical colleagues. Catherine and Helen debated real estate trends with David's tech partners. And at the center of it all, Thompson Hardware stood renewed, no longer just a family business, but a symbol of what families could survive and become. Charlotte Pemberton had arrived in our lives like a hurricane threatening to destroy everything we'd built. Instead, she'd cleared away the deadwood, revealed the strong foundations, and given us the chance to build something better. The new beginning was messy, complicated sometimes, painful, but it was real. It was ours, and it was beautiful in its imperfection. We were a family that had faced the worst and chosen to become our best, not in spite of what we'd endured, but because of what it taught us about the strength hidden in our bonds. As David found me and pulled me back to the celebration, I took one last look at the office, where I'd learned to count change and balance books. Tomorrow there would be new challenges, new threats to face, new families to protect. But tonight we celebrated survival and transformation. Tonight we were exactly where we belonged, together, grateful and ready for whatever came next. The new beginning had begun. 1 year later, Evergreen Estates bloomed with the kind of perfect June weather that made every bride grateful. But this wasn't just any wedding. It was mine, though nothing about it resembled the ostentatious display Charlotte had planned for herself in this very venue. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked, adjusting his boutonniere in the groom's suite mirror. As my man of honor, he'd insisted on breaking tradition. Small ceremony family, only no media. "The media can cover the foundation's anniversary gala next month. Today is just for us." Sarah popped her head in radiant in her bridesmaid dress. She and Marcus had been engaged for 3 months planning a fall wedding at the hardware store. 5 minutes, Jaime. David's already at the altar, looking nervous. "He's marrying into the Thompson family. He should be nervous," Marcus joked, but his eyes were warm. As Sarah left, my brother turned serious. "I need to say something. A year ago, I stood in this same room with Charlotte, convinced I was living my best life. I was drugged, deluded, and destroying the most important relationships I had. You saved me, Jaime, not just from her, but from the person I was becoming." "You saved yourself. I just cleared the path." "No, you did more than that. You showed me what real strength looks like. It's not about dominating or impressing others. It's about protecting what matters, even when it costs you everything." Catherine entered, tears already threatening her makeup. "Oh, my beautiful girl, are you ready?" "I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it." She adjusted my simple veil, the same one my grandmother had worn. "I wore this at my wedding, convinced I was settling for less by marrying your father instead of someone grander. 40 years later, I realize I got exactly what I needed. A partner who loved me even when I couldn't love myself. Just like David loves you." "Mom, let me finish." Charlotte showed me the ugly truth about myself, that I was willing to sacrifice my daughter for social status. But you showed me something better. That love isn't about approval or status. It's about showing up, especially when it's hard. You showed up for us when we didn't deserve it. Today we show up for you because you've always deserved it. Richard appeared at the door. "It's time, princess." As I took my father's arm, he whispered, "The store's quarterly profits just hit a record. We're opening 2 new locations. None of it would have happened without you." It's your legacy, Dad. No, it's our legacy. Thompson's strength isn't about standing alone. It's about standing together. The walk to the garden felt both endless and instant. Through the glass doors, I could see our small gathering. Helen in her wheelchair, sharp as ever despite the Alzheimer's slowly claiming her memories. Grace and Michael with their families, Tom Bradley and the other survivors who'd become extended family, Christopher Walsh with Diana and their medical colleagues who'd joined our cause, and David, standing beneath the rose arbor I'd planted myself years ago, looking at me like I was his whole world. The ceremony was simple, the vows personal. We spoke of building foundations together of trust earned through trials of love that grew stronger for being tested. When David slipped the ring on my finger, I thought of Charlotte's massive diamond meant to impress. This simple band meant infinitely more. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant declared, and as David kissed me, our small gathering erupted in genuine joy. The reception was held in the same pavilion where Charlotte had planned her elaborate fraud, but we'd transformed it into something warm and real. Mason jar centerpieces held wildflowers from the hardware store's new garden center. The menu featured comfort foods from our family recipes. Instead of a DJ, Marcus's football team had formed a surprisingly good band. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus announced during toasts, a year and a half ago, a predator tried to destroy our family. She thought our bonds were weak, our love conditional. She was wrong, but she did us one favor. She forced us to stop pretending and start being real with each other. Today we celebrate not just Jaime and David's marriage, but the family we've become. Tom Bradley stood next, to the woman who stopped Charlotte Pemberton and saved countless families from similar fates. But more than that, to the friend who showed us that survival isn't enough. We deserve to thrive. Christopher Walsh raised his glass. Charlotte took 2 years of my life, but losing her led me here to real community and purpose. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us clear the path for the best. As the toasts continued, I noticed Eleanor Hastings directing the service staff with quiet efficiency. She'd become more than an event planner. She was now the Foundation's Director of Family Services, helping other businesses recognize and resist predatory tactics. "Attention, everyone," Grace called out. "Before we continue celebrating, Jaime has an announcement." I stood David's hand in mine. "Thank you all for being here, for being family in every way that matters. Today marks not just our wedding, but another milestone. The Meridian Foundation has officially helped its 100th family recover from predatory fraud. The survivor network now spans 15 states, and with the evidence Eleanor Vance provided before her death, we've prevented over 300 potential schemes." Applause filled the pavilion, but I wasn't finished. Charlotte Pemberton thought she could destroy us by exposing our weaknesses. Instead, she revealed our strength. Every person here has chosen to transform pain into purpose, survival into service. That's the true victory. Not her imprisonment, but our collective refusal to let predators win. Speaking of victories, David added, "We have one more announcement. The Cayman Compound Rehabilitation Center opened last week. The first families are already arriving for healing retreats. Charlotte's Paradise has become a sanctuary for her victims." Helen wheeled herself forward. "I may be losing my memories, but I'll never forget this truth. Family isn't about blood or marriage certificates. It's about choosing each other, especially when it's hard. Charlotte tried to use that against us. Instead, she taught us just how powerful that choice could be." As the celebration continued into the evening, I found myself on the same balcony where Marcus and I had reconciled after Charlotte's arrest. The city sparkled below, full of families and businesses and dreams that would now be a little safer because of what we'd built from our pain. "No regrets?" David asked, joining me. "About what?" "The simple wedding. You could have had something grand, shown the world the empire you built." I did show the world. Every family we protect, every predator we expose, every survivor who finds strength to rebuild. That's my empire. I gestured to our intimate reception. This is my heart. Marcus and Sarah joined us, followed by my parents and the friends who'd become family. To think, Catherine mused, Charlotte wanted us to toast her marriage with champagne in this very spot. Instead, we're toasting her defeat with honest joy. We're not toasting her at all, I corrected gently. Tonight is about us, our future, our choices. Charlotte is the past. A lesson learned, a disaster survived. This is about what comes next. What has come next? Sarah asked. Life, Marcus said simply. Real, messy, beautiful life. Teaching kids, running businesses, protecting families, loving each other. The things Charlotte never understood were valuable. As if on cue, the band started playing At Last by Etta James. David pulled me onto the dance floor and soon everyone was dancing. Richard spun Catherine like they were newlyweds. Marcus held Sarah close, whispering something that made her laugh. Grace danced with her husband while their children ran between the couples. This was the true victory. Not the money recovered or the criminals imprisoned, but this. A family dancing at a wedding, celebrating love without pretense, trusting without fear. We'd been broken and rebuilt ourselves stronger. We'd faced betrayal and chosen forgiveness. We discovered that the very bonds Charlotte tried to weaponize were actually our greatest armor. Thank you, I whispered to David as we swayed together. For what? For seeing me when I was still hiding, for loving me through the chaos, for understanding that marrying me meant marrying this whole complicated, wonderful family. Thank you, he replied, for showing me that real love doesn't demand you become smaller to fit into someone else's life. It creates space for you to become everything you're meant to be. The song ended, but we kept dancing. Around us, our family, blood and chosen, continued celebrating. Tomorrow there would be new challenges. The Foundation's work was far from over. Predators like Charlotte still hunted for vulnerable families. The documentary's success meant more victims reaching out daily. But tonight in the garden where Charlotte had planned her greatest deception, we celebrated truth. In the venue she'd marked for conquest, we reveled in genuine connection. The woman who'd tried to steal our joy had instead multiplied it, creating a network of survivors who refused to let shame silence them or fear define them. I love you, Mrs. Kim, David murmured. I love you too. Thank you for being patient while I learned to stop hiding. You were never hiding, he said. You were building foundations. Now we build the rest together. As the stars came out over Evergreen Estates, I thought about the girl who'd washed dishes dreaming of something more. She'd built an empire, yes, but more importantly, she'd built a family that could weather any storm. Charlotte had been that storm, and we'd not only survived, but flourished. The band played on, the laughter continued, and love filled every corner of the space Charlotte had tried to poison. The $65,000 deposit I'd given Marcus for his wedding. It had been spent on this night after all, just not the way anyone had expected. Instead of funding a fraud, it had helped fund a movement. Instead of enabling a predator, it had empowered survivors. The true victory wasn't in defeating Charlotte Pemberton. It was in refusing to become her, choosing love over manipulation, trust over suspicion, family over fortune. We'd won not by playing her game, but by changing the rules entirely. As David spun me one last time, I caught sight of our reflection in the pavilion windows. A woman who'd learned to stand in her own light, a man who loved her for it, a family that had chosen truth over comfort. Charlotte had promised to give Marcus the wedding of the century. In her defeat, she'd given us all something better. A future built on honesty, protected by love, and strengthened by the very bonds she'd tried to break. The wedding was ending, but our story, the real story of families protecting each other's survivors, finding strength and love, conquering manipulation, was just beginning. "Ready to go?" David asked as the evening wound down. "Ready," I said, taking his hand. We walked toward our future together, leaving the past where it belonged, transformed from pain into purpose, from betrayal into blessing. The true victory was complete not in Charlotte's downfall, but in our rise from the ashes she'd tried to create. Love had won, family had endured, and the empire built from dishwater and dreams now stood as testimony that no predator, no matter how clever, could destroy bonds forged in truth and tempered by trial. The Thompson family had survived Charlotte Pemberton. More importantly, we'd survived ourselves, emerging not unscathed, but undefeated. That was the victory that mattered, the one she never saw coming and could never understand. As we drove away from Evergreen Estates toward our honeymoon and the life we'd build together, I smiled. Tomorrow the work would continue, but tonight love had triumphed over manipulation, truth over deception, and family over everything else. The $65,000 wedding had finally happened. It just celebrated a different union than anyone had imagined. The union of broken people choosing to heal together, of family members choosing to see each other clearly, and of survivors choosing to protect others from the storms they'd weathered. That was our true victory, and it was priceless. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. If you've ever faced betrayal from those who should have protected you, remember, your true family consists of those who choose to stand by you when storms come. Have you ever discovered that someone close to you wasn't who they pretended to be? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to hear more tales of families triumphing over those who would destroy them. Share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that love, truth, and justice ultimately prevail. Until next time, remember, the strongest families aren't those without scars, but those who've learned to heal together. Stay strong, stay wise, and above all, stay true to those who truly love you.